This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Happy Friday, gang. Let's do this. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. Getting ready for a huge sports weekend featuring a big one tomorrow night at Canada Life Center as the Jets kick off their 4-game homestand heading into Christmas with a battle welcoming the first-place Colorado Avalanche. And to get ready for the game, we'll talk Avs, we'll talk Jets, and the rest of the Central Division with the radio play-by-play voice of the Avalanche, Conor McGahey. And then after Conor joins us, we'll talk a little more Jets with Kenny Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press. Ken was down at the morning skate today, practice today for the Winnipeg Jets. Get a look at the lineup that we expect to see tomorrow night for the Jets. Find out a little bit about what they were working on. I have a feeling the power play would have been part of that. And more hockey talk with Wiebe as we get ready for a big one tomorrow night at Canada Life Center. And coming off quite a game on Thursday Night Football last night. No surprise, Tom Telesco, Brandon Staley given pink slips today by the Chargers, and nobody knows that team better than Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. We'll dive into the NFL notebook before a huge weekend in the NFL with 3 massive games with playoff implications on Saturday and the rest of the full slate on Sunday heading into Monday. So buckle up. Should be a good one. It is great to have you all with us. Shout out to everyone with us live on YouTube, as well as the podcast listeners. And, of course, a big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Coolbet just finished up the Lock Shop, our biggest show of the week. Trying to follow up 5-0 against the spread last week with the fellas. We made our picks. We got a couple partner parlays. We'll talk about that in the lines just before we drop marbles to finish off the week a little later on. Also, Princess Auto, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets and Little Brown Jug, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Canadian Club, Vita Health, Wallace & Wallace, and, of course, our great partners over at Nick and Nicky DQ, and lots to get to as well. Many options for a why not question of the day today for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get this show on the road and welcome in Michael Remis. Remo, what's going on? What did you watch last night?
I fell asleep for a bit on the couch, and then I watched Seattle dominate Chicago. I watched that, and I watched Roberto Luongo night. Very nice tribute by Thatcher Demko, getting a shutout in. They didn't retire Luongo's number, but they put him in the Ring of Honor #1. So I did watch that as well. I gotta be honest, I kind of like having Seattle in the NHL. I was watching the game. They had Eddie Vedder and his wife there, and he's wearing a Kraken jersey. I thought that was pretty cool. Although who he's with? He was with Chelios in the box. They're good friends. So that was
Chris Chelios and Eddie Vedder.
Yeah, they were in the box together. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not much of a Pearl Jam guy. Eddie's pretty good, but I don't. That doesn't get a big pop from me.
Oh, I had a pop. I popped on the. I'm like, whoa, Eddie Vedder in a Kraken jersey. That's pretty cool.
You know what I popped for last night? An absolute humiliation of the LA Chargers on Thursday Night Football. That game was like the Raiders they lost 3-0 at home last week. They had scored 46 total points in 4 weeks and were up 42-0 at halftime. Honestly, one of the most embarrassing performances I've ever seen from an NFL team. Brandon Staley, I mean, he was cooked already, but they just couldn't wait till the end of the season and drop the hammer on he and GM Tom Telesco last night. And listen, y'all know that I'm a Chiefs guy, so I'm in for the Raiders or the Chargers getting blown out like that. Chiefs are going to see the Raiders next week. But there are levels of losing in professional sports, and the Chargers achieved the most elite level last night, getting absolutely humiliated by their arch rivals in, as I said, the most embarrassing fashion possible. And it was one of those games in a different way than the Raiders-Vikings game was last week, where you couldn't turn away in the fourth quarter as they battled punts and field position to get one field goal. 8 different touchdown scorers for the Raiders last night. And I got to give Antonio Pierce a lot of credit. I mean, I'm not sure what he's like as an X's and O's guys, but it seems like the Raiders are playing for Josh McDaniel, for him a lot more than they did for Josh McDaniels. And that was a Charger team that absolutely quit. And as I mentioned in the intro, should be a fun chat with Hacksaw a little later on the aftermath of that one, Reem.
Yeah, very embarrassing for the Chargers, who started Easton Stick. Yeah, that's his real name at quarterback. And for a Raiders team that got shut out, I looked at my phone, it was a 49-0 at one point. I was like, oh, good thing I didn't turn this one on. So wild stuff, not surprising. They fired the coach there. I think anyone who's ever like trashed Justin Herbert can take a seat, because he's the one keeping this team competitive. And he is, I see a lot of comparisons to Matt Stafford when he was with the Lions. That's what Justin Herbert is with the Chargers. So
it's funny you mentioned the Lions. I mean, I did say to the guys that I was watching the game with, the 2008 Lions with Dan Orlovsky, the 0-16 team, would have beaten the hell out of the Chargers last night. I mean, that is how bad they were. So pretty ugly way to start off the week in the NFL. And we will talk more NFL later on, as I mentioned, with Hacksaw, and we'll get into the games coming up in the Coolbet lines. But there was a lot of other things in hockey last night, Reem, which we'll get to before we start talking Jets. And I guess let's first start off with a former Winnipeg Jet, Patrik Laine, who, I mean, just cannot catch a break. He scored early in the game last night against the Leafs in downtown Toronto, and then got worked into the boards. It was weird. The Columbus, I didn't see the replay many times, but it didn't look like it was like an egregious play or anything. Anyways, he ended up getting, kind of falling, going into the boards, and apparently has a fractured clavicle and is expected to be sidelined 6 weeks. And listen, I'm still a huge Laine fan. I know a lot of you are. It is just so sad to see what he is going through personally and what that team is going through, which included blowing a 5-0 third period lead to the Toronto Maple Leafs before Kent Johnson thankfully and mercifully scored the winner, and they didn't have the indignity of losing a game where they were up 5 goals in the third.
Yeah, it's disappointing to see that news about Patrik Laine. There are definitely a lot of fans here still of Laine. I mean, his shot, you remember the joy and excitement it brought you seeing that, at Canada Life or then MTS Center. But weird play, got tangled up with William Lagesson, and he fell into the boards. And I actually fractured my clavicle the same way. Or not the same way, similar way. But in hockey, well, I dove. I didn't get tripped by a guy. I tried to I dove to block a shot and went too far and went into the boards. This was like 15 years ago now. But Laine, I mean, he's starting to heat up a little. 6 goals in 18 games, 9 points. It's just a horrible season for Columbus. And I mean, blowing a 5-0 lead in the third period, that's rough. Credit to the Maple Leafs for battling back, but then losing in overtime. So it just continues for Columbus, and I'm sure they'll get another top pick.
Yeah, Ernie Thiessen in chat, Laine's best years may end up being his first 3 in Winnipeg. And it is stunning. I mean, if you would have told me after what he brought to this team, our city, the level of excitement when he entered the league, scoring, 36 and 44 as a teenager in his first 2 years. I can't wrap my head around what has happened to Laine. And it started off here in Winnipeg. And listen, I was one of the people that hated the trade because I thought that he was a player that would be scoring 40 or 50 with regularity for his entire career. That isn't the case right now. And as I say, I hope just for the sake of the person that at some point he gets into another situation where he can be the player that we saw light the league and light this city on fire back when he joined the team originally. But I think there is a possibility, Ernie, that Ernie's exactly right, that those best years of his career might be the ones that we saw here in Winnipeg. And listen, we can talk about the Dubois trade. We know what that has now since turned into for the Winnipeg Jets, and we see where the Jets are in the standings, and it's pretty hard to criticize the moves that management has made and where the team is right now and how it's turned out. But just on a personal level, for a guy that still has so many fans here in the city, it's shocking and it's heartbreaking, and that is going to be another long, long season for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I'd imagine it gets a little longer without one of their top goal-scoring threats out for the next month and a half.
Yeah, and a comment here from Alex Howe, who says, Laine last scored 30 with the Jets in 18-19, and you wonder if he's going to score 30 again. I mean, he's 25 years old. He battled injuries last year. His second injury this season. It's tough. It's tough to watch and almost kind of sad for a guy who had so much promise. I mean, there's how much talk was there? Laine versus Matthews when they got drafted, and Austin Matthews is one of the top players in the league, Hart Trophy winner, and there he was last night scoring a couple for Toronto on the way to tie it up, and you don't even really hear those comparisons. It's not close. And I think there was somewhat of an argument, when they first came into the league.
Yeah, absolutely there was. No, listen, Austin Matthews right now is probably the elite goal scorer in the National Hockey League. He's on pace to get 60 again, and it was funny. And again, we give the guys on TSN a hard time, for focusing on the Leafs so much. But a show like Overdrive is a Toronto show first and foremost, even though that it's on television coast to coast. And Jonas Siegel yesterday was talking about Austin Matthews, with where he sits in the pantheon of Leaf players. And I think there's an argument that he's the best Leaf of all time. I mean, the last time they did the list, it was Dave Keon. He's got a 60-goal season. He is tearing the league up again this year and scored another big one last night in that stirring comeback before they lost in OT. I'm not sure that there's that much debate. And there's certainly no debate, as much as we had a fun time with it in the first few years, of Matthews versus Laine. Speaking of the Leafs, Ryan Reeves got hurt last night, Reem. And Toronto coach Sheldon Keefe said he'll be out for a while. You know how this is going to turn out, right? They've been looking for the opportunity maybe to get Revo out of the lineup. I'm sure he'll be around for the playoffs or at one point if they need his muscle. I don't think they really need him on the ice. And, I mean, I sent you that tweet last night. The comments on Elliot Friedman's tweet about Reeves being, quote, out for a while. Klingberg saving him a chair on Robida Island. Let's go, baby. Circumcising the cap once again. It was just nonstop. And listen, this is a player and a person we have to talk about first and foremost, although there's a lot of people that aren't particularly large fans of Ryan Reeves, considering what he's done throughout his career and maybe to a number of teams. But I have no doubt that this is going to turn into be probably a long injury. He'll probably be on LTIR, and we won't see much of Reeves in that Leaf lineup for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, weird play. I think he kind of tried to turn, lost balance, went right into the boards, and when he was getting helped off the ice, it appeared that he fell down the stairs. And I'm curious, they're going to put him on LTIR, free up some cap space. Seems like that's a routine thing. If you get hurt in the Leafs, well, they're just like, hey, LTIR. Like they got Muzzin on there, 5 mil. Matt Murray's 4.6. Klingberg's 4.1. Leafs really know how to use their long-term injured reserve hustler.
Now, I mean, anyways, we don't need to spend much time on this. Just one of the other things that came out last night. I want to talk about the Kyrie situation, but before we do that, Tampa went into Edmonton and beat the Oilers last night, scoring, I think, 5 in the third period. And the Oilers put up like 58 or 59 shots on Vasilevsky. He was a monster last night. But that Oiler goaltending peaked out. I think someone reminded Stewie Skins that he is, in fact, Stuart Skinner, the same guy that was playing earlier in the year. And finally, that 8-game winning streak for the Oilers has been put to bed. And that was what they needed, though, Reem. I mean, they're right back in it, right there in the wild card race, I think, where everyone thought they would get to at some point this season. But to their credit, they did it very quickly, took advantage of their schedule. And now the Oilers, despite that loss last night, very much in it and very much a problem for the rest of the Western Conference.
Yeah, man, these coaching changes around the league. The Oilers picking up after theirs, Minnesota, and the Oilers, right back in it. And I think I picked the wrong game, that Seattle-Chicago game. I should have been watching Tampa, Edmonton.
I said to Reem, I'm like, oh, what'd you watch last night? Later on, he goes, oh, I was really in on the Seattle-Chicago game.
I was. I knew they were
Vancouver, Florida, which wasn't really that close.
Yeah.
But a wild game between Edmonton and Tampa of all teams. No. Give me Bedard and the Kraken.
Well, I took some Kraken guys in DraftKings, and I didn't pick the ones that scored. I never know with the Kraken. They got it could be anyone on any given night. I think it was Pierre-Edouard Bellemare popping a couple last night, but Edmonton, this surprised me. Steven Stamkos, first career 4-goal game last night. This guy scored so many goals. Yeah, isn't that crazy? This guy scored so many goals.
He scored 60.
Yeah, never had a 4-goal game until last night against the Oilers. How wild is that? Yeah, that's wild. So Edmonton, I mean, good for them, I guess. I was enjoying, the misery, and it was kind of funny. We were following Edmonton Sports. It was like 1,000 people after they lost to the Sharks, and I don't know. I don't think people are bringing the pitchforks after that loss to Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay is a team, they've been kind of interesting. They don't have the depth that they've had, and they're still in there. They're just out of a wild card spot too, behind Carolina, and you wonder what's going to happen with Tampa, as they traded basically every draft pick last year for Tanner Jeannot. Yeah. Well, it's like they don't have a lot of picks left to trade. Like what are they going to do coming up? They got a -7 goal differential. Like Vasilevsky hasn't been regular Vasilevsky since coming back, but that was a big win for them. And the Oilers were out. Yeah, they were on a heater up until last night.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at these teams that the Oilers went on this run through. They beat the Caps, they beat the Ducks, they beat the Golden Knights. That game that we all remember here in Winnipeg, that turned around on that Darnell Nurse goal. That was their 4th win in a row. Then they pumped the Hurricanes. They beat the Wild 4-3, beat the Devils 4-1, and the Blackhawks. Now their schedule gets significantly harder, though. These are the next few games for Edmonton. They lost last night to Tampa. They'll have a pissed-off Panther team coming off that shutout loss in Vancouver yesterday. They then go to New York to take on the Islanders. Not an easy place to win. An upstart New Jersey Devils team that's playing a lot better. And the New York Rangers, 3 games in 4 nights heading into Christmas. So we'll see how they do over this next little bit. They do have kind of a nice schedule although I say the Sharks are winning a lot of games, and they've been the only team that's beaten the Winnipeg Jets in a while. LA Kings and Ducks right after the break. So, but bottom line is Edmonton's going to be hanging around. They'll be in the mix. It still might take them a while to get into a wild card spot. Not sure that they'll be able to challenge any of the teams in the Pacific, because the Kings, the Golden Knights, and the Canucks have had such great starts. There's still a long ways to go to get up there. But Maybe the most interesting story in the National Hockey League last night came out of St. Louis. And of course, Craig Berube, the man that took over the club and led them to that crazy run in 2019 that ended with the Stanley Cup, was fired yesterday, or was fired earlier in the week. And yesterday was the first time that the reporters were in the room, and Jordan Kyrou, 25-year-old star forward for the Blues, who I don't think ever really bought into Craig Berube, had a comment. Remo, I was asked about moving on from Dubois, or from Berube, and his thoughts on and Craig. And Jeremy Rutherford reported that he said, no comment. He's not my coach anymore. And you can imagine how that went around. I think we talked about it yesterday, going, whoa, that is quite a scud at the former coach. Kind of a tough look. I can't remember a scenario where a group of fans reacted the way they did last night. But when Jordan Kyrou was out, introduced at the beginning of the game in the starting lineup, was roundly booed by the fans in St. Louis, and heard boos throughout the game last night. And he was quite emotional afterwards, in a scene, in a scenario you almost never see, especially on home ice.
Yeah, and it's pretty weird seeing a guy get booed on home ice for comments he made, and I don't think his comments were the worst, but I think it would have been easy. Craig Berube was beloved in St. Louis. He took over a team that was at the bottom of the standings and led them on this incredible run to a Stanley Cup. And when someone says, "Hey, what do you think about Berube?" I guess a lot of guys, maybe don't want to talk about it, but I think it would have been easy to say, who's a great coach and, miss him, but he's not here, and I'm looking forward to our new coach. I think that would be the standard, but not everyone is super comfortable with the media. I'm sure Kyrou's feeling some pressure after signing that big contract and really not producing this year. We talked about the comments here. I thought it was him kind of brushing it off. Craig Berube, took them to a Stanley Cup, Berube, and I thought, it's easy to say, we have a lot of respect. We did a lot of great things, but he could have worded it differently. But it wasn't like the worst thing ever. He didn't completely dump all over the guy. He just said he's not my coach.
No, but it's what he didn't say and the way that he said that very quickly that I think rubbed so many people the wrong way. And this is for a guy that just lost his job. PR 101. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. And I guess he didn't, but it still came across as a real shot. And listen, if you want to know why Craig Berube is fired, look no further than Jordan Kyrou, to be perfectly honest. This was a guy that wasn't playing for the team when they won the Stanley Cup. He turned into a star player, scored 37 goals for the team. They invested in excess of $8 million a year in him for 8 years. They've got 7 more after this. And the guy right now is making more than $8 million. He's got as many goals as Morgan Barron or Brendan Dillon. And it'll be interesting to see what Ken's got to say about this. We'll talk about this with him a little bit later on as well. It didn't seem, and Berube said this a number of times, our top players aren't playing like it. They are playing soft. We knew who he was talking about. And, he did challenge him. I'm not going to sit here and say Kyrou's a really soft player, but he certainly hasn't been doing what they've been paying him to do. And, if you're going to be a top player in the league, it comes with it comes with a lot of pressure and expectations, and he just wasn't fulfilling them. And it didn't seem like he was buying into the coach. And, I'm not here to say that he's a coach killer, but something was going to give one way or the other. And it was Craig Berube that took the bullet. Do you have the clip of for people that haven't seen this?
Yeah, post game.
Yeah, the post game, when he was, the guy was borderline in tears right now, and I don't think he realized. Well, as I said, there's a bit of a longer clip as to when he realized when this blew up. He kind of had his comments in the morning skate, went for a nap, woke up, and realized how fired up people were. But I don't even think he could have possibly imagined how rude a welcome he would have gotten on home ice as a star player for that team in a situation that I can't really remember anything similar to for a long time.
You're getting pretty emotional here. Where are the emotions coming from?
I mean, it's just tough, right? Like, I love playing here, so it's just tough to hear the fans booing me there. Sorry.
You're getting pretty emotional.
That was sort of the money shot, if you will. I mean, it was a longer scrum where, he talked about the day, didn't talk too much about what he said or didn't say, and then sort of said a few nice things about Berube that, if he had done it earlier on, everything would have just been washed under the rug. But it's going to be fascinating to see how that, how he can move forward from it. I will say this. I don't expect that to continue, especially with how emotional he was after the game last night. I have a feeling that, people will put it behind them, because the bottom line is all these people that were booing him were pissed off, and many would say justifiably, but I think they all want what's best for the team, and what's best for the team is Jordan Kyrou producing, playing well, being a 200-foot player, not floating around. I saw last year, and I know plus minus is one of those stats where you don't put too much into it, but he narrowly missed the green jacket for the entire season last year, I believe at minus 38. That for sure would have driven Craig Berube crazy. So interesting night and day in the National Hockey League with the Jets off, and now the Jets prepare for the Colorado Avalanche, and we're going to get into that with Conor McGahey coming up in just a minute. Before we do that, folks, the holidays are here, and our friends at Canadian Club have a CC for every occasion, whether it's gift giving or entertaining for the holidays. We've got you covered. Great gift options and whatever you're looking for your own parties, with sales on all the Canadian Club favorites, original 100% rye and the CC Classic 12-year-old. But right now, there still is limited stock at your local Manitoba liquor marts of the Canadian Club Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask. Our signature Canadian Club Classic 12-year-old whiskey, finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry casks. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club, with the added sweetness of sherry, available now while supplies last. The CC Invitation Series is running $79.99 at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And again, sale prices on all the Canadian Club favorites all month long for the holidays at your local Manitoba liquor marts. Hey, the holidays are here, and we know Manitoba Battery is the most convenient way to get your batteries at the best prices in town. But speaking of convenience, Donnie and the gang might be able to help you with some very important and useful Christmas gifts for the folks in your family. Check out what they've got going on right now heading into Christmas. 25-foot booster cables for $60. 3 sets of 12-foot booster cables for $60. A 2,000 amp booster pack for $120. And check this out for you ice fishermen. An ice fishing package that includes a 10 amp lithium battery and charger for $120. And of course, you can get a good old gift card for your loved one to get that battery when they need it for $0, but still getting the best price in town. And of course, Manitoba Battery delivers for free citywide with any purchase over $60. Get your credit card, give them a call at 204-783-8787 and knock 2 or 3 gifts off your list in 2 minutes. It's that simple. And of course, you can find out more and order as well at manitobabattery.com. You're going to want to be looking good for the holidays, so it might be time to schedule a visit down to our friends at Modern Man Barbershops. Now with 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the newest locations on Pembina Highway and on Plessis Road. Guys, you look great for the holidays at Modern Man. They've got you covered with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. But make an appointment and book your look online via modernmanbarber.com at the most convenient location to you. And give them a follow on Instagram as well at Modern Man Barbershops. And of course, heading into 2024, many of you are probably planning projects, home improvements. Maybe you want a spa or a hot tub or much, much more. And Aquatech has you covered. And they'll do it all for you, because whole home renovations start with Aquatech. With thousands of rentals as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, your bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. All right, Kenny Wiebe was down at practice this morning. Weber will join us a little later on. We'll talk some NFL with Hacksaw. We'll finish up with the marble race. But let's get ready for a big one tomorrow at Canada Life Center, 6 p.m. Tickets are still available. Hopefully we'll see a great crowd tonight for what should be an awesome battle for first place with the top of the table Avalanche. And to get ready for tomorrow night's game and talk a little more about the Central Division heading into Christmas, let's welcome in Conor McGahey, the radio play-by-play voice of the Avalanche. Conor, what's going on? Best of the season, and thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Glad you guys called. And this is, number one and number two in the Central. Winnipeg is a scary good team, and they put it together. And I love it when it's 1 versus 2. I always have. Doesn't matter if it's division, conference, league. 1 versus 2 is always the best.
Well, and Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, a holiday season, a heck of a way to start off the road trip for the Winnipeg Jets. And I guess this is just a quick one-off for the Avs and right back to Denver.
Yeah, we have the Sharks at home on Sunday. And then back out on the road, we'll fly to Chicago Monday to take on the Blackhawks at United Center on Tuesday, and then come back home before Christmas to play Ottawa and Arizona. So we had 2 quick one-offs this week on the road, which is good because the season started really road heavy for the Avalanche. The first 3 games were on the road for the first time in a long time. You're going back almost 10 years. The last time that happened, you had a game, 2 days off, game, 2 days off. And it was just kind of a sluggish start to the schedule for Colorado. So this is more like it. They just got done with a 5-game homestand, went 3-2, which is fine. Jared Bednar said 4-1. Sounds a lot better, but doesn't always happen. But the home games have been stacked here in December because the schedule is really road heavy for Colorado. The 5-gamer in January and a 6-game road trip in February.
Well, the Jets, of course, are just coming off the road on a road trip that started off with that win in Denver against the Avalanche. Just take us back there. What was your thoughts on that game, which was, up until that point, maybe the signature win of the season for Winnipeg on the road against a team that really has been the measuring stick in the Central for the last few years?
Well, up until this very instant, I had to put that game completely out of my mind and totally forget about it. So now that I think about it, no, it was big guns versus big guns. The Winnipeg big guns showed up and the Avalanche big guns struggled on that night. And we've gone through some spans this year where the offense has not been there. Mikko Rantanen at that point was in the middle of 10 straight games without a goal, which really doesn't happen for a guy who scored 55 last year. In spite of that, Nathan MacKinnon, that's part of his 13-game point streak, longest now in the National Hockey League. Points in every single home game to start the season. That's one shy of Matt Sundin for the franchise record, which is 16 in a row to start the season. But the game versus the Jets, Hellebuck was unbeatable, and we were catching him at a time where he had won his last 4, I believe, or 3 starts, but had not allowed more than 2 in each, which is, at the moment, Colorado is not winning those 3-2 games, those 2-1 games. A lot of them have been 3, 4, 5 goals or more when it comes to a win. So Winnipeg earned that victory on a couple weeks ago. I think it was a couple weeks ago at this point. But now it was a revenge game versus the Buffalo Sabres the other night at home, and I think that the Avs sort of have a similar mindset when it comes to going to Winnipeg tomorrow.
Speaking of the mindset of the team, you just sort of mentioned a bit of a revenge game. This is a veteran team. They understand that we're talking 82 games. It is a marathon in the regular season. But there are some points, especially within the division, where, it might not go your way. And I would imagine tomorrow night for Colorado might just not be an average road game, if you will, in the middle of the season.
Yeah, it's not. And, you want to have that first place right next to your name as much as possible. And you don't want to give up any points in the division at Ball Arena. They always market every division game. As a division rivalry, it's a 4-point night, and there is some truth to that. Now, our late friend Peter McNabb would always make the argument, you play more games against the Eastern Conference than anybody else. Why is there so much emphasis on the division game? Which he totally had a point to. But I think for Winnipeg and Colorado in particular, you have a feeling that, Dallas has shown some unpredictability, I think, lately. It was strangely, might I add, with some of their results. I think Winnipeg has been more steady. I know that they would go through, a 5-game win streak and then a 3-game losing streak. But I just think that, between Colorado and Winnipeg, this is maybe what it looked like come the first week of April. And you want to get some separation, even if it's 2 points, even in the second or third week of December.
Connor, as far as tomorrow's game goes, any changes from what we saw last week, I guess, last Thursday? How healthy are the team? Anyone in or out? Or are there any guys that, I guess we'll have to wait till the skate to see whether they can go?
Yeah, it's always wait till skate to find out. But we do know that Cale Makar feeling better, back healthy, even though he left for a shift or two at the end of the first period. The other night, Balharry Nichushkin was ill the last time. He is back in a force. He got goals number 99 and 100 the other night, set up by Nathan McKinnon's assist, which gave him 800 career points. He's the first guy from the 2013 draft class to do that. The second closest, and I could not believe this when I read it, is Alexander Barkov, and he's not even at 700 points yet. So Nichushkin, 100 career goals, McKinnon 800 career points. So Nichushkin back in, Makar back in. It's healthy for the most part. And Jared Bednar always says that he likes to make, decisions when you have too many personnel instead of not enough. So, and that's featured Ben Myers, who got called up from the Colorado Eagles, who scored his 6th career NHL goal the other night. Would it be him? Would it be Yoel Kiviranta? So for the most part, aside from the absence of Sam Girard, Gabe Landeskog, Arturi Lehkonen, who's back on the ice, by the way, after that scary collision into the boards with the neck. He's back in skating, which is a good sign. That's about a 12-week recovery. We're week 5 right now, I think. So good for him. But the Avs should have both Cale Makar and Balharry Nichushkin back, something they didn't have the last time out.
Conor McGahey, play-by-play voice of the Avalanche, joining us to get ready for a big one Saturday night, 6 p.m. start, downtown Winnipeg at Canada Life Center. Obviously, when average fans think of the Avalanche, you think of Nathan McKinnon, you think of Rantanen, you think of Cale Makar. There have been a bunch of new additions in the offseason, though. I mean, fill us a little bit in on this year's edition of the Avalanche and how things have gone for some of the new faces in the lineup.
Depending on how you count it, you basically have 7 new forwards, 6 for sure in this forward group. I don't think there's any team that made the playoffs last year that has that kind of turnover when it comes to their forward group. You basically have almost remade your entire second line and your entire third line. The main additions are Ryan Johansson coming over in the trade from the Nashville Predators. He has 9 goals on the season. Around 56% from the dot, which is where he's been career, and that's something the Avalanche have struggled with for a long time now, is being able to win faceoffs. So he's been a good guy for that. 4 power play goals as well, led the team for a while. And then the Roaring 20s line, as we have called them, made up of Miles Wood, Ross Colton, and Logan O'Connor. They all wear the number 20. There you go, right there, Roaring 20s line. But Colton... And a great piece of business. I would make the argument one of the best piece of businesses done by any general manager in the offseason. Chris McFarland trades Alex Newhook to the Montreal Canadiens, gets a first, second, and Gianni Fairbrother back from Montreal, and then automatically flips that second-round pick to Tampa to get Ross Colton, a guy who's played center in the past, but was sort of asked to take over as the third-line center. And his chemistry with Miles Wood and Logan O'Connor, who he's fought twice before, by the way, in his career, has been exemplary. And that's been an energy line. Miles Wood has a shorthanded goal. Logan O'Connor has 3 shorthanded goals. Ross Colton has 8 goals. The Avalanche are 8-0 when Ross Colton scores in a hockey game. So those are the main additions there. Freddie Olofsson is a pickup from the Dallas Stars, who's been just solid as a rock as a fourth-line center. And then they take a flyer on Jonathan Drouin, a league minimum for him on a one-year deal. Obviously, former teammate of Nathan MacKinnon back with Halifax when they won the Memorial Cup, and a run that basically vaulted MacKinnon to a no-doubt number 1 overall in that draft. Drouin picked number 3, obviously. He knows that this is, a possible last stop for him, but he's actually picked it up very nicely. His Corsi numbers are some of the best on the team. He went through a stretch where he was able to find the net. He's on the first power play out there for Colorado. So the new additions, it's taken a little bit to find the identity of Avalanche hockey over the past month or so, but every single one of them as a person, as a player, I think has fit in perfectly here with Colorado. And you have a backup netminder with Pavel Francouz pretty much, and I hate to say this, probably being done in his NHL career with all the injuries. Ivan Prosvetov picked up off of waivers from the Arizona Coyotes, came in this week and won 2 straight games. So a lot of new additions, like I said, as players, as people, have fit in very nicely.
You mentioned Drouin. I just want to ask you about him because he, you mentioned, a top draft pick, traded to the Montreal Canadiens, who's, the pressure of being a French player in Montreal is probably unlike anything else in the National Hockey League.
Absolutely.
And it didn't go well. And this is an opportunity to kind of reclaim his career, but in a very different situation and role in a team. How did he handle it right from the get-go in training camp? And from someone that followed him early on, how has he embraced this opportunity, and is he making the most of it?
He's embraced it like it's a last chance. And I think there's a lot of gratitude towards Nathan MacKinnon, who Chris McFarland said was in on this decision about bringing him in as a possible top 6 guy for Colorado. And Drouin has had the work boots on from day one, really, which is nice to see. You always want that to be the case, and you want a guy who has struggled in the past to put in the work to get where he wants to go and where the team wants him to go, and that's been the case with Jonathan Drouin. Unfair expectations, I don't know if that's accurate with the 3rd overall pick, but again, none of us can imagine what it's like to be a French player with that pressure in Montreal, and it's not cut out for everybody. And he was very public about his sort of mental distress in that, and it led to some depression and anxiety, and kudos to him for coming out and saying that, first of all. But I think it lets everybody know that the pressure that you put on players has an effect. They're not robots at the end of the day, and like I said, everyone has their strengths in dealing with it differently. But with Jonathan Drouin, I just love that he took this opportunity to come to this team and play with some of the best players in the world, somebody he's familiar with. And I get the feeling that he wants to play in a way, and frankly has played in a way, that he doesn't want to let and hasn't let anybody down.
Connor, I want to ask you about your perspective on the Jets. And of course, you just got a chance to see them for the first time, in person last Thursday. But since last trade deadline, the addition of Nito Niederreiter, Vlad Nemetstikov, and then, of course, the big Dubois trade with now Iafallo and Balharry playing up front. What have you seen in the Winnipeg Jets, and how would you compare this year's Jets to maybe the ones of the last couple of campaigns?
I think this is the best Jets team that we've ever seen, really. And you move some pieces out that may have been problems in one way or another. And I in LA, I loved how Balharry and Iafallo always played, especially Balharry. He's a difference maker on every shift. I get the feeling. I equate him to how Miles Wood and Ross Colton have been skating for us. It's always 140 miles an hour, and it's always creating opportunities. And sometimes when you're the forechecking forward, you don't generate transits for you. It's for somebody else on your line, right? And that's sort of what Gabe Balharry has done. It pays off for him a ton. But that's a nice piece of work to get those 2 guys. I know Kupari has been in and out, but those are the 2 main pieces, and a 2nd-round pick, I believe, if that was part of the trade, I think. And even if it was that, I think that is pretty. That's another piece of good business that helps your club out a lot. You get a reemergence of Scheifele. I think Kyle Connor is probably the most underrated player forward for sure in the National Hockey League. unfortunate to see him out for this one, but he did get 2 versus us the other night. So, but he'll be back with a vengeance without a doubt. And then I put Connor Hellebuck as one of the best goaltenders in the league, one of the best American goaltenders of all time. Full stop for that. And he has shown what he can do with almost every single night. And there was a night, it was either last year or the year before we were there, and we put 2 or 3 in and on him early, and you could just tell that it was an off night. And those don't happen very often for Connor Hellebuck. So you have Morrissey, you have Pionk, you have Dylan, guys that just work well together. There's a lot of size back there. They're tough to play against. So to me, without a doubt, this is the best Jets team that I've ever seen.
And I mean, it really has led to a really interesting race amongst the top 3. I mean, I think that there's 2 points in between the Avalanche, the Winnipeg Jets, and of course, right in the middle are the Dallas Stars, who are having quite a bit of a campaign. Has Colorado and Dallas seen each other much yet this year so far?
One time, and again, this goes to the uncharacteristic nature of what I thought the Dallas Stars would be. So we go there, first game of a 2-game trip. Avalanche are down 3-0 in Dallas with Jake Ottinger in net. Colorado scores 6 unanswered to come back and beat the Stars at American Airlines Center by a final score of 6-3. So uncharacteristic, like I said, of what we've seen with Dallas. They've done that a couple other times with other teams. The game after, they had a similar comeback themselves. They were down, they came back to win after that. So that's more Six Flags over Dallas than it is over some of the other teams in the Central Division. But be sure at the end of the day, they're going to be, I mean, these are the 3 best teams in the Central. I think everyone can agree that with the flux that's going on in St. Louis, I mean, obviously Chicago isn't going to be there. Still not sure about Nashville and their identity, but Andrew Burnett has done a wonderful job with them. Are they going to be a wild card team at the end? But I just think that Colorado, Winnipeg, Dallas are the 3 best teams in the Central Division.
And in a lot of ways, I think that, I mean, overall, I think the Central might be stronger than a lot of people gave the division credit for at the beginning of the season. But as we now get close to the 30-game mark, I mean, we're kind of seeing 3 teams establish themselves as the top 3 and a bunch of other teams battle to be in that wild card spot. The Arizona Coyotes are a team, though, that you cannot take for granted anymore. I mean, they can win on any given night. The Predators had that terrible start and then rattled off 8 wins out of 9 games and are right in the mix. But the pressure on these teams to stay in the mix has already cost 2 coaches their jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, Dean Evanson got the slip earlier this season, and then it was Craig Berube this week. What did you make of the firing of Berube? And I may as well ask you about the scene last night where Blues fans let Jordan Kyrou hear it about what he had to say or didn't say about a guy that won that city their first and only Stanley Cup.
Yeah, and I've never been I've never liked the booing. I mean, especially of your own team. It's your team, and if the team plays poorly, that's one thing. If a team, watching Thursday Night Football last night, say that game is in Los Angeles, right?
Oh my God.
If that game is at SoFi Stadium, I would sure hope that Charger fans would boo an effort where it was 42-0. Was it 42-0?
42 zip at halftime.
Yeah, 42 zip at halftime. That is a situation where the Boo Birds might come in, because that's a team who's losing 42 Cobb. But when it comes to an individual player, just for something that he said that wasn't even that egregious, I don't think. I mean, he wasn't wrong. I mean, everyone has to do their own thing to get to the present moment. And maybe for Jordan Kyrou, he said, look, I can't focus on the past. I have to focus on now. Craig Berube was my coach. He's not my coach anymore. We're moving forward. And I can't blame him for wanting to move forward and focus his efforts on wanting to be the best for his team. And you saw the post game last night and the tears, and I didn't like to see that either. So booing an individual for, and it wasn't like he called Craig Berube a bad person or anything like that. I mean, Berube is beloved in every circle, media circle, coaching circles. Players liked him a lot. Obviously, he won the Cup with the Blues in 2019. I get that. So it wasn't like he was dusting him off. He just said, hey, I'm trying to move forward the best that I can. So I just didn't like, again, back to the Jonathan Drouin thing with the pressure from Montreal. You saw what the booing did to Jordan Kyrou, brought him to tears after the game last night. I never like to see that.
It'll be fascinating to see how that goes forth. And I think that, with his reaction afterwards, I would imagine that was sort of a one and done. I mean, the fans saying, hey, we did not think that was cool. Have maybe a little more respect for a guy that just lost his job and did so much. But the bottom line is, if the Blues are going to do anything, they're going to need a lot more to Kyrou, who they've got a big investment in. I mean, if we assume that the Jets, Stars, and Avalanche are the top three teams that hold it down, when you look at the rest of this division, I guess Nashville's 3 games above 500, St. Louis and Arizona at 500, the Wild 1 game below, and then the Blackhawks. Of those 4 teams outside of Chicago, who do you think is the most dangerous and has the best chance of being in the postseason tournament once we get to the end of 82?
Boy, I mean, I probably would go back and forth between Nashville and the Arizona Coyotes. But you see the Jekyll and Hyde of Arizona, right? I mean, they don't play horrible on the road, but they're definitely a different team away from the mullet than they are at Les Moulets, as we've come to affectionately call it. And they're a team that the Avalanche have always struggled with. I mean, I go back to even the Cup year of 2022. No matter what, I don't know why it was. The only win that the Avalanche had over the Coyotes was a shootout victory. Nazem Kadri got that, and that was the final push to get him into the All-Star game. But the Avs have struggled with Arizona, especially in Arizona. So I don't know if that magic can continue enough. I think that with the personnel and the coaching staff, especially in Nashville, that might be more tenable. But I think one of those 2 teams is going to be a wild card team in the postseason, and will be either probably the Avs or the Jets' opponent in the first round.
Connor, this has been so much fun. I got to ask you one more, and this is maybe the hardest question. You see this team on a daily basis, and we know that Nathan MacKinnon is an unqualified superstar, and Cale Makar is likely the best defenseman and will be right up there, when we're talking about Hart Trophy voting. Who's the MVP of the Avalanche?
Oh boy. I mean, right now, with Nathan MacKinnon in an Art Ross race and 21 points in 13 games, and basically when the well was dry in a lot of other areas, even though he wasn't scoring goals, he was still putting points up. It's hard to not say him at this moment, to be totally honest. You have plenty of other candidates. A bright new young star that the Avalanche signed as a college free agent from Cornell is Sam Malinsky, who's coming on the blue line. He has a goal, his first NHL goal, and an assist the other night, and has just been unbelievably steady and reliable, smart with the puck. And he's only played 7 NHL games, but they've been 7 flawless NHL games. But if you look up and down the lineup, there are so many arguments for a lot of guys, but with just the sheer volume and the timing and the quality, it's hard to not say. And this is not a cop-out answer by any stretch of the imagination, but you have to say Nathan MacKinnon, just because much like at the end of last year, Game 82 in Nashville, if the Avalanche win, they win the division. And in the last 2 minutes of Game 82, Nathan MacKinnon finishes off his hat trick to get the Avalanche to 2 points to win and their 3rd division title. So it's just sort of the type of player that he is. And as of right now, I would say that he's the Avalanche's MVP.
It's a pretty great luxury to be able to have that conversation between a Cale Makar and a Nathan MacKinnon. And I'll tell you what.
And a Mikko Rantanen, in there. First 50 goal scorers since Milan Hejduk.
Hey, is he still beefing with the Finnish media? That was something else after a game last week.
I know it was a little off the radar, but he and Arturi Lehkonen are close friends. And I think it's all good. And I think, he after that, between that game and the game after, he had 2 goals and 4 assists. So I think all is good All is good in the world.
You got to tell Lekkonen's old man to maybe do that a little more often to spice things up. It's preferably not around when they play the Jets. I'll tell you that much. Connor, can't wait for the game tomorrow night. Really appreciate the time. We'll look forward to catching up later on this season. But have a great holiday season to you and yours. And let's look forward to a great game tomorrow night in downtown Winnipeg.
Looking forward to it. Glad you guys called. Merry Christmas.
All right, great stuff with Conor McGahey. Cannot wait for this game tomorrow night. Tickets still available, gang. Let's, hey, I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk about some of the crowds, but I would hope that many people that have been somewhat on the fence thinking about, oh, how's the team doing? Well, we know how the team's doing. They're battling for first place, and the Avalanche are in town tomorrow night on a Saturday night, heading into the holidays. Let's fill that place tomorrow. Pick up your tickets, winnipegjets.com/tickets. And 3 more awesome games next week heading into Christmas. An original 6 week at home. Habs Monday, Red Wings Wednesday. And the final game before Christmas, the Boston Bruins come to town on Friday. Hope to see you there. And again, winnipegjets.com/tickets. And some other great holiday gift ideas over on the website as well from our friends at the Winnipeg Jets. Hey, with the holidays are here, 2024 just around the corner. And I know we talked a lot about men's health during November and the Movember movement. But gang, you want to be on top of your health 12 months a year. And of course, if you're looking for great natural and organic supplements, groceries, and beauty products, great prices on those over at Vita Health Fresh Market. Also have Winnipeg's largest selection of local products too. So it might be a great time. Even if you can't make it down, go to myvita.ca and check out everything that might be a nice addition to holiday gatherings, big Christmas dinners and whatnot. They've got great organic turkeys and all those sorts of things, as well as the best selection of supplements for men, including Prairie Naturals, Canada's #1 men's health brand. Vita Health, proudly family-owned and operated here in Winnipeg since 1936, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations, and again, online, fully shoppable website with local delivery options at myvita.ca. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace are busy right now heading into the holidays because not only are they the fencing experts and dominators of the industry since 1946, but they're also the leaders in overhead garage doors. And your overhead garage door had lots of ups and downs this summer and fall, but it's starting to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And guys are thinking about the holidays, parties, probably a bunch of parties going on this week. If you're in the department where you're kind of getting into the closet and going, damn, I need to upward my menswear game, a couple things you need to know. An F Apparel gift card might be a perfect gift to get you looking great for 2024. And don't forget about the great sales coming up after Christmas on Boxing Day and through the week at F Apparel. But you can give the gift of style with just a few clicks on the website. You can get to F Apparel, EPHapparel.com for gift cards. And then use those gift cards for custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories in town. Pop down and see him in person at 190 Smith Street. I would suggest if you want to go in for a fitting, make an appointment at F. That's EPHapparel.com, and check out the website as well for gift cards and other promos heading into the holiday season. All right. We got a big one tomorrow. Let's welcome in our pal Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Ken, happy holidays and kudos on your very, very festive backdrop today for your WST Weekly visit.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Great to be with you as always. Yep, feeling in the festive spirit here, and I'm going to do one little turnaround here. This is the outdoor mode as well. Hang on one second here. We got the most wonderful time of the year thing outside here as well. So There we go.
You obviously purchased that
My
yourself.
my sister made that. My sister made that. That's a high-end gift from Tracy down in Altona land right there.
Beautiful. Well, hey, listen, we're just getting into the holidays. It was quite festive last Sunday at TCB. I mean, what a banger for the boys, and a big crew. It looked like an awesome night.
Yeah, buddy. It was just under 100 people attended the live show, and yes, we did have a few technical glitches on the show side, but the event was a fantastic success. Thanks for mentioning it.
No, it was great. There was listen, people were talking about it for days in our chat. To be honest, but listen, everyone's had their parties and gatherings, but it's not quite time to hit the holidays yet. Jets now heading into a massive 4-game homestand with the Avalanche here in town tomorrow. But before we get to tomorrow night's game, how about that road trip? And listen, I know they didn't get that win in San Jose, but I can't say that they didn't play hard and play well for the full 60. Although it wasn't a great start. Shout out to LB for keeping them in. But man, you see the excitement here in the chat right now and just talking to Jet fans around the streets, especially after the game on Wednesday night with that comeback win. Maybe the signature win of the season. And we were saying that at the start of the road trip against the Avalanche, but that game against the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, for the last 2 weeks or so, Rick Bowness and you and I, Sean and I, chat rooms all over the place, the good folks on Twitter, are the Jets an elite team or can they become one? And well, they've had signature wins over both the Colorado Avalanche and LA Kings. Now, certainly the Kings, we know, hadn't been playing as well going into that, but they were barely removed from a NHL record 11 consecutive wins to start the year. And we know how potent the Avalanche can be and have been since the Jets left their arena. So, yeah, I mean, impressive road trip overall. And of course, it's natural to think, oh, well, their only losses to one of the worst teams in the NHL. Well, yeah. The Sharks lost the first 11 games of the year. That is 100% accurate. But lately they've been playing a lot better, and the Jets were fine in that game with the exception of their special teams. And sometimes that happens. And I mean, my counter hus too is that losing to the Sharks brought I think the Jets were already going to be ready to play the LA Kings just based on how the first meeting went. But I would also say it brought a different level of urgency, knowing that the Kings were on the docket after a loss to the Sharks and knowing the Avalanche were coming to town. So 5 out of 6, they've 5 out of 6 wins for them. They're still battling for top spot. I mean, there's certainly room for improvement in certain areas. We know what those areas are. But the Jets are playing really good hockey, and they're full value for what they've been able to produce to this point. But at the same time, I understand there's a show me element for some people, and this 4-game homestand that you referenced us is a great example. They're playing 2 more elite teams in that stretch. They're playing the Colorado Avalanche and the Boston Bruins. And in the middle, as Dylan DeMello pointed out to me, the Montreal Canadiens are not a great hockey team, but they've given the Jets problems over the years, even when they haven't been a great hockey team. They've already beat them once this year, and this is their last chance to face them. And then Detroit is always an interesting team. They've got Patrick Kane in here. They've been a little bit up and down, obviously, Perron suspension. But they're not in a position where they can say, hey, we had a great road trip. Let's kick our feet up and, take a breather going into the break, because that's just not the way it works. The teams that they're battling with haven't been losing a lot of games. So if you want to be an elite team, that means you got to basically win almost 3 out of 4 games or something around those lines. And that's hard to do at the NHL level. Yeah.
I mean, as I said, you're going to lose a game or two over the course of the season. And, and better to lose playing the way that they did after a slower start,
right,
than just a no-show. And we haven't seen those, at all. I mean, listen, we know the numbers, 18 straight games with three goals or less. Connor Hellebuck on an absolute heater after an un-Hellebuckian start to the season. But what was very interesting about the game against the LA Kings in particular is that they had to find a way to come back from a 2-0 deficit and do it without Kyle Connor, their number 1 goal scorer, against a team that absolutely squeezed them for 2 periods on home ice in a similar situation earlier this year. Yeah. And Ken, the explosion of Ehlers Scheifele and Velarde was something to behold. 11 points between them, a plus 15. I mean, on for all 5 goals for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, you can make an argument that is as good as a Jets top line has looked in a long, long time. Thoughts on the performance of those guys, especially in the Velarde revenge game, and what we can maybe look forward to seeing as they play together a little bit more, get some practice time and stay at home for the next 4.
Yeah, Hassan. I mean, it's certainly something that we were looking forward to seeing how the Jets would respond, and a natural reaction to Kyle Connor not being there in that Sharks game was, oh well, how much are they going to miss Kyle Connor? I mean, if you only put up 1 against the Sharks and you're the Jets, you're kind of thinking, well, how is our group going to respond? And then there's naturally a 2-0 deficit the next night. And then people are really starting to wonder, well, what's the next move for these guys? But instead of, cheating for offense, they stick within their structure, sort of start chipping away. And as you mentioned, the top line was absolutely on fire. All parties involved. I mean, Gabriel Velarde, unbelievable game, first 4-pointer. We know how much this game meant to him by listening. First, you saw it on the ice, and then by listening to him after the game. And Gabriel Velarde is not a guy who is really a guy who wants to be the center of attention. That's certainly not the, I know he's only played the 10 games, but like this is a guy who isn't bringing attention to himself in an interview setting, though, he was very blunt and frank when it came to Blake Lizotte. And he was also very blunt when it came to the last question he was asked about, well, does this end does the return to LA end this chapter of the book? And he's like, no. Basically, he said, it's just getting started. No, this doesn't end anything. Like, this is just the start of the you don't want me, I'm going to show you why you should have wanted me mentality that you will see 3 times a year for as long as they can roll.
That wasn't a chip on his shoulder, Ken. That was a boulder. I mean, and what was so interesting about it was that he comes off like a career performance, a massive win, and you would think that maybe there would be a little bit of, I don't know, exhaling and just sort of smiling. Hey, it was good. He seemed to still have his game face on well after the game right now, and I mean, I know that it was a special game. He talked about it. But I mean, to be motivated the way that he was with the fact, hey, they don't want me. They didn't want me. I mean, whatever works. But it does seem like he's got a very motivated player. And he also touched on just what he's seen in Mark Scheifele and Nikolai Ehlers. And in the absence of Kyle Connor right now, he has a glorious opportunity to make up for a slow start and those missed games and really build off a performance that got this entire fan base out of their seats wherever they were watching the game on Wednesday.
Yeah, Hassan, he didn't really want to revisit it. It basically was the first question he was asked about Blake Lizotte. But there's no doubt that he is feeling personally harmed by the fact that play knocked him out of 18 games, and knowing how well he's played with Mark Scheifele since, this was an opportunity for him to really make his mark early in the year that was taken away from him. And, he really is one of these students of the game, Huss, and I love the way he's playing. I mean, it was just an incredible performance. His defensive reliability when he stole that puck from Philip Deneau in the slot and then just got going north. I mean, we talked about Gabriel Velarde a ton in training camp and early on. This is a guy that has a unique skill set, and he can really, whether it's with Kyle Connor earlier, now with Nikolai Ehlers, this is a guy who's big and strong. He can move the puck. He can really rip it. Now he's starting to get his legs back underneath, and we saw it in the game against the Ducks, getting to the net. He goes to the hard areas, very smart when it comes to passing and on-ice awareness. This is a guy that has a really high-end toolbox, Huss, and the smartness, the hockey intelligence has also been on display a lot. And the guy just simply he loves the game, even though he's not necessarily exuding that love a ton in interviews so far. This is a guy who really feels like he has another level to reach, and we're starting to see it kind of get unlocked here as a member of the Winnipeg Jets. And I really could see a very bright future for him riding shotgun with Mark Scheifele. And then, again, it'll sort itself out, whether that's Kyle Connor, Nikolai Ehlers on the other side. I really see him being a great fit. His ability to win board battles. And like I said, he's got a high-end skill set. And although he's not a, run you through the end of the boards type of player, he's hard to play against because of his frame. He's really strong. His puck protection skills are really high. And as we've mentioned here, he's got a very high level of motivation. Like, this is a guy, Huss, I think can comfortably become a 30-goal scorer if he's playing, 70-plus games.
Yeah, and he adds a defensive element to that line.
Yeah, for sure.
That, you kind of mentioned this, but that Kyle Connor doesn't bring to the table. And I will say this, considering the length of Kyle Connor's injury, I will put a moratorium on what does the top line look like when Kyle Connor gets back. That's a little ways away. But I'll tell you what, if we could see more of Balharry, Scheifele, Ehlers do what they did on Wednesday night against the Los Angeles Kings, it'll make for some interesting conversation at the end of January.
You bet. And Hustle Night, I mean, we've been talking about Mark Scheifele throughout the 28 games, and rightfully so. He's at north of 30 points now already and double digits in goals. But Nikolai Ehlers' performance here in this last stretch, Huss, is the Nikolai Ehlers we were anticipating seeing coming into the season. And yes, we know that missing almost all of training camp was a big blow for the player that he wanted to look like. But early in the year, I was getting a lot of notes about, turning the page on Nikolai Ehlers or what's going on with Nikolai Ehlers. And I haven't been getting a lot of text messages like that the last little while, Huss, and for good reason. He has exploded onto the scene here. He was really starting to flourish with Cole Perfetti. And now he's really just taken his game up another notch and shown to so many of those, like a lot of the people were banging on the Nikolai Ehlers could be a top line player, points per 60. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the points per 60 or points per minute or whatever you want to use, but he has been given the opportunity to be a first line player. And he's showing that he can produce at that kind of a level. Now it's about running along at that level for a, 20 to 30 game stretch and then seeing what happens from there. But right now, Nikolai Ehlers is absolutely flying, Huss. And when he's that explosive and he's playing with players like Mark Scheifele, who is a sneaky explosive skater himself, and then you have that other element with Balharry, that's a pretty dangerous combination. And now it's about the guys underneath that line. This is not a one-line hockey team, but they need scoring throughout their lineup. And right now, the second line's not rolling quite the way it was when Cole Perfetti was a dominant force. But at the same time, Huss, Perfetti showing his defensive acumen during the last little while here. And even though things have quieted a bit for the Adam Lowry line, they're still making an impact on the game, even though they're not scoring at the same rate. So the fact that they've been able to, shoot up the standings, even though they've had a couple of guys go through some pretty dry spells, I'm looking at Iafallo and, even Appleton has gone a long time now without scoring after his great start. I mean, that tells you about how well they've been playing structurally, and then to explode the way that they did with the 5 goals, that's impressive. But during the stretch with Kyle Connor out for 6 to 8, Huss, they need to win more games, probably 2-1 and 3-2, and really lean on that defensive structure, which, as you mentioned now, 18 consecutive games, 3 or fewer. I brought that question to Rick Bowness today. He was having none of it. Now, I'm not sure if this was a Scott Arniel situation where you're worried about if you talk about it the next night, the Avalanche come in and that streak is over. But he's like, well, we just think about the daily. But Huss, if a team can go almost a quarter of a season with allowing 3 or fewer, that is a testament to the foundation that is being built in terms of their defensive play. And quite frankly, we have not seen that type of structure for quite some time around these parts.
Oh, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Now listen, this is going to pain you, and it pains me. I'm loath to give too much credit to Rennie for a take, but I guess a clock is right twice a day. But I'm joking, of course. I thought he made a great point earlier this week on one of the shows, and I can't remember what game it was afterwards.
Yeah, I know where you're going. Or no.
But he talked about Ehlers when Ehlers was with Perfetti, and Ehlers' dynamic nature of carrying the puck. I loved his analogy that he sort of creates a wake behind him, and Perfetti is so brilliant and such a smart player that connection really worked with him being able to find that and giving Cole, who might not be the fastest player, a little bit of extra time and a little bit extra space to make plays, and we saw the connection. It does seem like Cole is missing Ehlers, and frankly, I think anyone that was playing with Ehlers and all of a sudden isn't would see a difference. But where do you see the second line, third line, whatever you want to call it, the Perfetti line with Vlad and Alex Iafallo as it looks like going into tomorrow? And what can they maybe do a little bit better to end up on the right side of both the score sheet and spend a little bit more time in the other team's end?
Yeah, it's super interesting, Huston. For sure, Ehlers has, a part of Cole's streak where he went pretty wild in terms of consistent production. But I would actually counter by saying Cole actually kind of got Ehlers going when Ehlers was struggling. So I would say that I haven't really seen.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really seen a huge dip. I'm not even seeing I've seen any dip in Cole's game. Maybe not as many or as plentiful, grade A
not
scoring
in the offensive
chances.
zone as much.
No,
that's
true.
the big thing. Like they've been chasing the puck a lot more and not doing the things. Like he's dominant when he has it and the team has it, and they've had a tough time kind of just getting possession, as opposed to where they were, before the switch.
Yeah, fair. And I mean, one of those games was Velarde's first back. So again, I'm not blaming Gabriel Velarde. Everyone knew he'd have rust to shake off. But when that line played, 12, 13 minutes against the Avalanche, and the fourth line played almost as much. It's not a finger pointing scenario. I just don't think that it's been a deterioration and as much as it just sort of getting back to knowing you. Vladislav Nemestikov was coming back from injury as well. Alex Iafallo, going through a bit of a dry spell too. So, I mean, you're kind of almost asking Perfetti to carry the offense on that line. And it's not that he can't. It was a different scenario before when you had a few more guys rolling. And again, I'm going to go to the same well I've been going to for quite some time. When that line got a goal, Nino Niederreiter was up on it, right? When they had made the momentary flip in that game against the Avalanche, and then they went back for the third period, they switched back to Nino with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton. So, short of Alex Iafallo snapping the slump, I think Nino's a guy that could find his way eventually back into that top six mix. And we know that the Jets were wanting to play Cole Perfetti with Nino Niederreiter out of the year because that's how they started training camp. So,
hey, I'm not pushing for this, but what do you think it would take for Bones to break up the Lowry line as it's been all season long?
Yeah, I mean, also to us too. I mean, that line has gone a little bit quieter when it comes to offense, but what we know is that line can still be of force even when they're not scoring, like at the rate that they were in the first, 15 to 20 games of the year. But I don't think that line has been as dominant as they were earlier on either. And again, I also think too, it's because Iafallo can give, Iafallo's played a lot of his career in that kind of checking line role. So he can give you a lot of the same things, not as physical, obviously as a Nino Niederreiter, but Nino Niederreiter can provide a little bit more of an offensive, touch to the tops, that second line or the Perfetti line with Nemestikov, if that's how they choose. And like I said, I'm not here saying that's the only way for the Jets. I just think it's something they're going to have to consider eventually. But they also, that line has been one of their most consistent lines all year long. So I can understand the reluctance to go away from them. So, back to our original point. I mean, Nemestikov probably feeling better and better the more he's been in the lineup. I think that Perfetti will get his game, produce a little bit more offense while really, being a responsible two-way player. It's very rare, Huss, when all four lines are going at the same time. I mean, this is not a new problem. And I would just say that the way that the fourth line has been playing, David Gustafsson, that great scoring chance too off of the Mark Scheifele shot the other day, like absolute robbery on the rebound. I would say that the Jets are less concerned about, making a bunch of changes here to try to get one line going when the majority of them are still like pretty much rolling throughout. So, and I understand that too, but I'll be curious to see how long it's a long-winded way of saying I'll be curious to see how long they stick with that formation, because we already know, I mean, Morgan Barron got a bump and that didn't last very long. It lasted basically less than one game. So I'm curious. There are a lot of options to work their way through, and even Morgan Barron could be an option to be with Lowry and Appleton if Nino goes up as well. because Iafallo is a guy who's still going to work hard no matter what line he's on. Like sort of, it's almost like we touched on it earlier in the year. He's become the Matthew Perreault human jumper cables, but now he's the guy that needs the boost. And maybe that boost comes by, sometimes when you get bumped down to the fourth line, then the boost comes from you just kind of getting back to basics and working your behind off and maybe getting rewarded with one here or there.
In theory, I've got a lot of time for Iafallo with Lowry. I mean, I kind of thought that, if everything was healthy, I thought that if all the players were healthy, I thought maybe the best version of that line would be with Nino Niederreiter and Alex Iafallo with Adam Lowry. And we saw that a little bit earlier on in the season. Maybe it'll end up at that point, but I think to your point, Nino has the ability to move up into that top six and maybe add a little bit more to the Perfetti line, certainly doing things a little differently. Some interesting comments here in chat. Bob McCullough claims that you owe him a beer for missing a putt in Arizona, potentially on purpose. And Fred Schneider was out Christmas shopping for a Mahomes doll for Huss. Fred, you just make sure that one has 2 Super Bowl rings on it and room for another one in a couple months. Anyways, back to business. You were down to practice today.
Yeah.
What was going on? And I imagine probably working on the power play a little bit, because that is one area that hasn't been great lately. And obviously, it's a big change without Kyle Connor, who's such a big part of PP1.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a work in progress. We know that 0 for 13 on the road trip. That's not a number that any team is going on and saying, "Hey, we've had a ton of scoring chances, but they're 0 for 13." So, I mean, the Jets scored a couple of really pretty goals today during the power play sessions, including one like ridiculous setup by Gabriel Velarde to Mark Scheifele from what looked to be an almost impossible angle. That kind of left people kind of gasping and going, whoa, that was a pretty impressive play. In terms of PP2, Nate Schmidt was still running the top of the second power play unit. So I think that's a pretty good indicator to Huss that he will remain in the lineup, and that, the battle for the 6th job is still Nate Schmidt as the incumbent and having a leg up on Logan Stanley and Declan Chisholm. Unless something strange happens in the morning, usually when you roll with those units, that's what you're going to be going with in the next day. This is I don't want to sound like a broken record, but if the shoe fits, I mean, the Jets have just gotten back to being a little bit too stagnant at times with the power play. And we know what happens when that is the case. They become a little bit too stationary. They're not as dangerous. So you need more motion. And when you have more motion with your feet, usually you have more shooting lanes that are created. And at the same time, Huss, if Josh Morrissey's slapper goes off the post and in rather than off the post and out in that game against San Jose, are we really talking about the power play being a problem, right? Like that's the margin for error, if you will, right? So, but yeah, I mean, it hasn't been good enough. I mean, it's simple. The game against the Sharks, 0 for 5. Like I think Sean and I talked about this too. Like I thought for 3 out of the 5, they moved the puck really well. For 2 of those 5, they had like 130 or 140 of continuous zone time and actually scoring chances. But then on the 4th one and the 5th one, I really didn't like how they moved the puck. And that was the thing for me that was maybe concerning from that game. And, last game, didn't, I guess they only had the 2 opportunities, right? So, I mean, it wasn't sitting here saying, oh, the power play was terrible in that game. It was one where, again, it's a carryover power play late in the period, starting the next one. But yeah, I mean, they got to be crisper. They got to have better puck movement and be crisper. And once you get crisper, usually, the last time we talked about a really extended drought, Huss, the Jets kind of went on a kind of mini heater and kind of worked their way to the middle of the pack, and now they're back to the bottom third, right?
And I'm glad you brought that up. And that was, if you recall, that started, they finally got a power play goal in that Vegas game, the Vegas game at home. And how was it? It was Alex Iafallo with his ass right in the Vegas goalie's face. Like it was way different because, I mean, like if you think about what was happening in that power play, like at the end, those last couple against the Sharks, Morrissey was up top. You had Ehlers on one side, Scheifele on the other, and they were scoring going back to each other. They were looking for that one-timer, and the 2 guys down low, Perfetti didn't touch the puck very much on that. And I have a feeling like tomorrow night, if they do get opportunities and things aren't going the way they will, I mean, the old in case of emergency break glass. I mean, just get it to the net. And sometimes to break out of a bit of a mini slump, you get a dirty one, a greasy one. And after that Vegas goal that sort of turned things around, like the power play itself looked a lot better as it continued to go, but it actually, to me, really started with just more chaos in front of the net.
And I would say, too, that with Gabriel Velarde being back and sort of finding his way, I would say that having Velarde as maybe a bit more of a net front presence is something that the Jets are certainly going to be looking for, Huss, right? I mean, he's a big guy, big and strong. He can get to the blue paint. He's got the ability to retrieve the puck. He's good around like when the puck is around his feet on those rebounds that get kicked out, he's good at finding it. So I would say this, the one other thing that I think the Jets will consider at some point, and we know this, Mark Scheifele loves to have the puck on his stick on that left wing boards in the Ovi Stamkos spot. We know that. But we also know he can be quite deadly in the high slot as well. And now that Kyle Connor is out and Nikolai Ehlers is more on that right wing one-timer side, I wonder if the Jets eventually, whether it's through interchanges or actual structural changes, I wonder if Mark Scheifele is moved into the high slot a little bit. And then you have Ehlers and Perfetti maybe on the flanks. I mean, that would be something that I wonder, like as I'm thinking back in my head to the times where the Jets were struggling and they interchanged, they switched or flip-flopped Kyle Connor and Patrick Laine to their non-one-timer side. I wonder if some point maybe they consider having Perfetti and Ehlers on the flanks and then using Scheifele back in that high slot, especially if you go Ehlers back to the left wing side and Perfetti, because of his vision and passing ability, like the way that Mark Scheifele used to be used by Blake Wheeler on that half wall to the high slot. Now, again, they don't have Patrick Laine on that left wing side anymore, but Ehlers has that ability to create seams to pass and also to have the button hook and then ripping slap shots when you're coming on that downward plane. So if they're going to try something else, but I agree with you. I think that having Velarde down low as the screen guy and the ability to tip pucks and then find the rebounds at his feet, I think that will be something they'll want more of a net front presence for sure. But right now, I think they're waiting for the perfect one-timer a little bit too much, and I agree with you. I think that if they shoot a little bit more while Velarde is providing a screen, I think you might see a little bit more effectiveness happening here.
Hey, Heli tomorrow, do we expect LB against the Habs and then Heli Detroit Boston?
Yeah, it's a good question, Huss. I do think that Brossoit is going to have one more start here, in the next little stretch of this 4 before the break. No doubt about it. I'm still not 100% sure on whether that will be Montreal or Detroit. I know that there would be some, I think Brossoit played the game in Montreal, right? So I wonder if he'd like a return bout in that one. But I definitely think that Brossoit will start one of the 4. I would think it would be either against Detroit or Montreal. And see what happens from there.
Hey, just before we go away from the Jets for a second.
Yeah.
I just wanted your take on Berube getting whacked and then the whole Jordan Kyrou business with his very curt comments that were not taken well by Blues fans. And him getting booed out of the building last night in a Blues win for a guy with 7 years left on his deal and making more than $8 million.
Yeah, certainly interesting. I listened to the entirety of the Doug Armstrong presser, Huss, all 40 minutes of it. Certainly he was fairly blunt in his assessments. Kyrou, I think at the time he probably thought really not much of it. I mean, like he didn't really say anything inflammatory, but it was another one of those situations that if you're not there and you just read the quote, it looks like he's taking a shot, but really it was a nothing burger to me. Could he have, dropped a platitude in there? Sure. But I don't know. I mean, we know that things weren't always rosy between them. So again, I don't think that there was, anything. I don't think Kyrou did anything wrong. But a bit of a lesson learned and maybe drop a little bit of a, throw a bouquet on the way out, I guess, to a guy that helped you win a Stanley Cup ring. I understand that. In terms of the emotion, I mean, that's obviously something that impacted him a great deal. And, I applaud him for showing that emotion. It's something that if you haven't been booed very much in your life, of course you're not going to feel good about it. I thought he answered the questions very well in the post game. And that's a tough spot. Like, that's a tough spot, Huss, for either the reporter or the player to be in, because like, if you're the player, you want that to be like, you're waiting for the bell to ring, right? You would like to get out of there as soon as possible. And as a reporter, you're not really trying to drag the player through the mud, because you know how uncomfortable it is for him. So, I don't see this as a point of no return type of thing. Like, Kyrou played well yesterday, but it was just one of those things that's like, he said it himself. Like, he woke up from his afternoon nap probably about 2:30, and he probably had 500 text messages or a bunch of alerts, and he's going, well, I didn't really say anything this morning. What's the problem? And, nobody wants to be booed. Like, that's a terrible feeling, no matter, especially when, hey, us, like, Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou are the future of the St. Louis Blues. They got big time 8-year deals to become the new core after they,
That's the bad news for St. Louis.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, Kyrou's been a pretty productive player. This year hasn't gone well for him. We know that. Doug Armstrong said it the day before. But I just find it odd, Huss. And I understand, like, all coaches have an expiry. We understand that. But I'm really surprised, like, having spent quite a bit of time around the St. Louis Blues, especially that year where they beat the Jets. I covered the next round against Dallas. Like, Craig Berube, I'm surprised that the leash wasn't a little bit longer for somebody who has put up the only banner in franchise history. Now, I understand some of the other stuff.
My take on this, Ken, is that, he did everything to try to get through to those guys, to care a little bit more, to do a little bit more on their own end, and was completely let down by them, specifically Kyrou. And when Kyrou made that comment and the way that it came off, that is such a strange phenomenon. Like, I can never remember a scenario like that, even if a guy has a reputation as a coach killer. But you combine what got Berube fired with that, it obviously set off a lot of fans that pay attention to that team on a daily basis that frankly thought that Berube got a bit of a raw deal from the guys that they invested in, namely Jordan Kyrou.
Sure, but I mean, the other part of that too, Huss, I mean, Doug Armstrong is the one who made the commitment. Why aren't they booing Doug Armstrong, right? Doug made the commitment to those players, and he built the roster,
and he
right?
also fired him.
And I'm like, Doug is a very smart person. He's a good guy, very well respected around the game. But I mean, he's the one who knew what the identity was, then allowed most of the identity players to leave the room, right? They're no longer built in Craig Berube's style of play. So and Doug admitted it. He said it's a lot easier to get rid of a head coach than it is to try to trade 6 players, especially when some of those guys have no movement clauses. But I'll be monitoring this very closely, Huss, because they've been a team that has sort of been under the microscope a lot in the last couple of years. They, had a couple pieces that moved around the deadline, and they could have some of those pieces again. I mean, Pavel Buchnevich, Huss, I mean, he would be someone who has one more year in his deal. I mean, he would fit the mold of a player that the Jets would potentially be looking at. We know the Jets have had interest in him before when he was in New York. To me, this could be turn back. I'll get in the hot tub time machine for a Paul Stastny special here, especially if they're a team that falls out of it. But Armstrong made it clear he still thought that the Blues were a playoff team, where without the play of Jordan Binnington, Huss, in the first 10 or 15 games, the Blues would be near the bottom of the standings from what we've seen. So I'm curious to see how this rolls in the next little while here. No doubt about it.
Beauty, dude. Thanks again. Just a wonderful festive backdrop, warming everybody as we get into the weekend. Have a great one. We'll see you down at the rink, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week before everyone eats some turkey and opens some gifts in a week or so.
You bet, Huss. Enjoy the weekend, and I'm curious for Hacksaw's thoughts on the Nick Mullins era starting to heat up in Minnesota land here as that playoff. Could we even call it a playoff race with a bunch of teams at 7-6 and 6-7? I'm not sure, but it is. So it's going to be interesting.
It is as wide open as it's ever been. And the funniest thing about that thrilling edge of your seat 3-0 win by the Vikings last week is that they were the only team that won. They actually gained ground on everyone and are in the 6th seed. And man, they got a big one tomorrow against the Bengals. We're going to get to it with Hacksaw right away. Wiebe, have a great one, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Tremendous weekend. Happy holidays. So we got a few more weeks for that, I guess.
Right on. We'll see you at the rink tomorrow. There is Ken Wiebe. Just before we bring on Hacksaw, we do have marbles coming up. We might hear a couple clips from Rick Bonus as well before the end of the program. And of course, the Coolbet lines. Want to thank our friends at Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is the store founded and headquartered right here in Winnipeg, where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list, or maybe that holiday list, or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West at one of their 2 Winnipeg locations, or shop online 24/7, 365 over at princessauto.com. And speaking of holiday shopping, you might want to get down to Royal Sports this weekend. Take care of everything remaining on your list for the Jets and Bomber fans in your circle with one easy trip to 750 Pembina Highway. Royal is stocked with the most massive inventory and selection you have ever seen, with thousands of pieces of Jets merch, all the jerseys personalized for your favorite player, Bomber gear, NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, Raptors, international soccer. The biggest hockey selection in town is the Hockey Superstore for over 40 years, and tons of great gift ideas as well on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side, including an amazing Yeti section. Check it out, 750 Pembina Highway, and give them a follow on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And man, it's a big weekend. Tomorrow's going to be a fun day. If you're not going to the game, you should be, but if you're not, post up at your local Boston Pizza. 3 huge NFL games, and of course, Jets Avalanche at 6. No better place to kick back with the gang, enjoy some ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, the newest selection on the BP appetizer menu, than your local Boston Pizza. And hey, if you're staying at home tonight or on the weekend, you can always get the great taste of Boston Pizza by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, you all know that I love my conversations with Hacksaw on Fridays. I will admit, I am as excited about this next conversation as I maybe have ever been. I came back home late night after the game last night, and I immediately went to LeeHacksawHamilton.com to see what Lee had to say about that football game last night. The team that he probably knows the best, the Chargers, with an all-time faceplant that this morning cost the jobs of Brandon Staley and Tom Telesco. Lee Hacksaw Hamilton joins us now. So you've been watching football for a long time. You've watched this Charger team for a long time. Where does that game last night rank on the embarrassment meter for anybody associated with the Chargers organization?
Hustler, I was the voice of the Chargers and then the Seattle Seahawks for a total of 17 years. And we had a bunch of really bad seasons in San Diego. I've never seen anything like that at all. And I just think it's a cumulative collapse brought on by injury after injury after injury, brought in by a defiant coach that refused to say there was anything wrong with his 29th ranked defense, a franchise that's got so many young players, but in so many places where they continue to break down. Now they've lost their quarterback for the year. He's had 3 major injuries in a year and a half. He's taken such a terrible beating, talking about Justin Herbert. And then they hit the eject button on Tom Telesco and Brandon Staley this morning. I was up till 2 a.m. writing for my website, and then I wrote this long column and I posted it. And for the headline for your viewers and listeners who have yet to see it, just go to my website. But my column was, your resignation is expected on my desk by 9 a.m. And at 9:30, they fired the general manager and the coach. Now, I might be in the minority. I just think there are too many mitigating circumstances as to why this franchise is in the state of disrepair that it is. I think they needed more time. I like Telesco. I got along really well with Staley. I think he's a real intellect. But obviously, he had to learn on the job, and he's learned some very painful things with, quote, his defiance of how they're doing business. And in terms of the game, I've never seen anything so horrid. in all the years I did the Chargers, we had a couple of real bad blowout games. We had one game at the Houston Astrodome against the Oilers. We lost 35-0. But that was very early in Bobby Ross's regime, and we knew how that evolved. They turned out to be a Super Bowl team. But this was devastating. And I hate to say it because I don't know the psyche of those players, but they look like they quit. And they look like they weren't prepared. And that's a real god-awful situation. And they left that young quarterback, Easton Stick, out there, and he took a terrible pounding. He's the kid from North Dakota State that I kind of really like. I think he's got a future. But that was just an abysmal 3 hours. And to make it worse, the Raiders gloating about putting your foot down on the pedal when they were up 42-0. And this is just a bitter, ugly rivalry between these two franchises. And, Raiders have nothing to cheer about, too, because they've been incompetent under Mark Davis's regime. But this was just horrible. Bottom line, I wish they had given Telesco and Staley a little bit more time. I think there had to be structural changes on that coaching staff and maybe some philosophical changes as to how they operated. One thing that really bothers me, the Spanos family, which owns the franchise, which took our franchise out of San Diego and moved it to LA where they were irrelevant. Spanos franchises had very little success over 39 years. They've had 13 winning seasons in 39 years. They've had only 3 winning coaches, and they fired all of them in 39 years, and they continue to make mistakes. And if you look at the organizational chart, there's Spanos names everywhere in that organization. First family of football, that's what they call themselves. Excuse me, first family of football is the Rooney family, maybe the Robert Kraft family. It's not the Dean Spanos family. They needed to remove John Spanos, the president of football operations. Dad, thanks for the job. They should have thrown him out if they're going to throw Telesco and Staley out. It is dysfunctional. Historically, there are like 45 games under 500 over the 39 years they've owned this thing. A lot of people down here are really happy seeing what happened to Charger football last night because there's a lot of people here who hate watch on TV. But I felt bad for the GM and for the coach, and I feel bad they wasted the career of a battered quarterback who I think is a hell of a star in Justin Herbert. Yes, the question, that's my answer.
Yeah, well, and you know what, it's funny. I mean, there's a lot of people that have been throwing shade at Herbert all season long, saying he's not the guy. He can't take the team over the top. Well, you saw what that team was without Justin Herbert last night, and that was downright embarrassing. On the Raiders side of it, this might be the high point for the organization in the last 10 years. I mean, they loved every second of it. They've already fired their coach this year. Pierce is in. Does what happened last night and the fact that they've been more competitive under Antonio Pierce as opposed to Josh McDaniels, is he the inside track on that job, or how do you see things going with the Raiders as we get into the offseason?
Well, I'll link Mark Davis, the owner, to Dean Spanos, the owner of the Chargers. You're going to trust Spanos to make the right decision on a head coach after all the misery he's created over the last 3 head coaches he hired, then had to fire? You're going to trust Mark Davis? What's his track record? Because they were abysmal in Oakland at the end, and there's been nothing to shout about here. And I'll tell you, the wild card, as a part of this conversation, there's a storyline out there that Mark Davis has had conversation with you-know-who, John Gruden, about coming back. And part of it would be Gruden would have to drop his lawsuit against Roger Goodell. I find that hard to believe because the misery with Raider football has been caused by John Gruden's abysmal draft record. So Mark Davis has nothing to stand on in terms of accolades, what I've accomplished. Antonio Pierce, he gets him to play hard, but the roster is full of holes. Find me an offensive lineman who's any good aside from Colton Miller, who's hurt. Find me anybody on the defensive side of the football aside from Mad Max Crosby. And they always go for the shiny object in free agency and trades. And Devontae Adams is a fine player. Josh Jacobs has had some really good seasons. They've obviously missed on quarterbacks in the whole Garoppolo situation. So, there's nothing to hang your hat on. The only good thing about the Raiders, through all their decades, the only thing that remains, their logo. The rest of it's garbage. And they're not very good either. Their record is abysmal, if not worse, than the Chargers record. So I don't know where Pierce stands. I guess we'll give him the final 3 weeks of the season and they'll have to make an evaluation. But, you know, a year ago this time, Rich Biasucci had done such a good job, special teams coach who became interim coach, and they didn't keep him, and they hired Josh McDaniel. So it's a mess. There's a lot of toxic places on the NFL roadmap right now as it relates to organization and coaches. And you can go from New England to what might happen in Washington, what has happened in Carolina. You know, there's more jobs that could change before the end of the season. So it's a messy time in the NFL.
Well, just quickly touch on the New England situation, because reports this week that this is like, you know, the parents are separated, but they're still living together, but dad's going to move out in a month or two. I mean, is this it for Bill Belichick and his incredible run with the Patriots?
Well, I think the burning question is, how should Belichick exit? I think it has to be honorable. That's a Hall of Fame coach. But as I've said a couple times, I think on your podcast, I know I've said it on my podcast, Bill Belichick, the general manager, failed Bill Belichick, the coach. You look at that roster, they have no playmakers on that roster. Outside of quality players he's drafted on defense, they are anemic on offense. And so there's got to be a whole changing of the philosophy, and obviously, I think, really different leadership. That being said, I don't think Robert Kraft should fire him. Now, I don't know if at age 71 Belichick wants to retire. That would be the peaceful way to exit. We will always remember the greatness of what he created with Tom Brady and what he built in multiple rebuilt stretches. But this can't go on because he's to blame for the shame that Patriots' product on the field has become. If he exits, I hope it's not messy. I hope it's with honor. Does he want to coach again? You know, there's a theory that Ron Rivera will be removed in Washington. And what better sense to hire a guy who had a lot of success in New York in the NFC and Belichick? Carolina's down there with an impulsive owner. Does he want Belichick to come in? They're floating the idea out here in Los Angeles, maybe Belichick. However, I would not hire him in a player personnel decision making. I think you got to have a different breed of general manager who's up to speed with how to get players, how to take care of players, how to sign players, how to treat players, and just hand the roster over to Belichick if you want to hire Belichick.
What are the chances Jim Harbaugh's in the NFL next season, do you think?
I think there's a unique chance of Harbaugh, and I think there's a wild card rumor out there that Ryan Day may want to opt out of Ohio State. We've got two college coaches out there that might want to come to the National Football League. I think Harbaugh's in big trouble. The NCAA has not closed out this investigation over the COVID recruiting violations. There was a stretch in 2020 where college football was shut down. Nobody was allowed to make any contacts, any visits at all with any players. Arizona State cheated. By the way, Antonio Pierce is the guy that did that. They got the Sun Devils in trouble. He got fired at Arizona State, wound up going to the Raiders. And Harbaugh's people cheated. And they have not handed down the sanctions yet on him. They did at the University of Tennessee, and they killed Tennessee. They've stripped them of so many scholarships that starting next fall, Tennessee football is not going to be what it was because of COVID recruiting violations, too. So I don't think the book is closed on what kind of discipline is going to come to Harbaugh, because the Spygate thing was one thing. This COVID thing seems to be going a lot longer and a lot deeper. So maybe there's sanctions that he's going to be available.
You know, Lee, I had to laugh. You know, we kind of had some jokes at the expense of some of these matchups in QBs. Last Thursday, it was Bailey Zappi versus Mitch Trubisky. Last night, it was Easton Stick versus Aiden O'Connell. Tommy DeVito's the toast of New York. Joe Flacco's back with the Cleveland Browns. Is this the worst quarterback crisis you can remember in the NFL?
You hit the nail on the head, and there's really no way around it because quarterbacks take hits, quarterbacks get hurt. You can't change the rules completely to change the game so the guy at quarterback does not go down with an injury. But, you know, with Easton Stick replacing Justin Herbert last night, the NFL has now had 19 of their 32 starting quarterbacks go down with major injuries. There have now been 54 different starting quarterbacks. And when Davis Mills starts Sunday for Houston, that'll be 55 different starting quarterbacks for the 32 teams in the league. So, it's just been a catastrophic season for really major injuries. I just don't think there's any way around it. You can't change the rules. But, yeah, you're correct. It's bad. Only thing worse in the NFL right now is the screw up with the referees, the instant replay calls, and that raging controversy. But the quarterback crisis is right there, almost at the same level.
No doubt about that. Marbles open, folks. Exclamation mark marbles in the chat. You know what to do. Hacksaw, this is a wild weekend. Like, I mean, it's tough. We don't have enough time to go through all of these games, but I mean, just tomorrow, you've got 3 matchups, all with massive playoff implications. And then you move on to Sunday. I mean, the Bills at home to the Dallas Cowboys, a Sunday nighter with the Ravens in Jacksonville against the Jags. I mean, what are the most intriguing games to you at the top of your Hacksaw Power Poll for NFL watching this week?
Now, I don't want to throw cold water on you, knowing how cold it is in Winnipeg probably right now. It is winter. I'll throw cold water on you, though. Don't get excited about 7-6 teams. The whole bleeping world is 7-6 right now in the NFL.
Hey, everybody's in it.
Obviously, I know the whole world is in it. But at the end of the day, we've really had a group of teams, elite teams, break away from the pack. The whole pack is 7-6 for the most part. And then there's about 4 or 5 teams at the top. And those are the dudes we're going to be talking about in the playoffs and going to the Super Bowl. Very briefly, Dallas is rolling. They've won 7 of their last 8. Dak Prescott's got a quarterback rating of 106. CD Lamb's got 106 receptions. Dude is averaging 13 yards per catch. And they've stayed free of catastrophic injuries on the offensive side, notably in the offensive line. Buffalo, something doesn't fit there. Their defense is no longer what the defense used to be. That's a big issue. We used to laugh and call them the Buffalo Mafia. But they're just not the same franchise that side of the ball. They have toned down all the mistakes that Josh Allen was making. I think the change of offensive coordinator has kind of cooled off his gunslinger mentality. He's not putting balls in places that he was the first half of the season. But Dallas right now is just collectively a tremendous team, and their defense gets no recognition at all because Dak's been the dude. I think Dallas is going to beat Buffalo. And Baltimore, Jacksonville, Jaguars got a real problem right now. Just the fact that they had such a significant injury to Trevor Lawrence. He's back on the field, but he doesn't look like the same player because of the severity of that ankle injury. And losing Christian Kirk at wide receiver is a huge blow with that emergency surgery that he had. So Jacksonville is down a couple of key components to what made them good for a long stretch of time. And the Ravens are just rolling. They've won 7 of their last 8. And Lamar Jackson is having an unbelievable season because for the first time in a group of years, they put players around him, running backs and wide receivers and kid tight ends that are making a ton of plays. And nobody's talking about their defense. The defense just beats the hell out of you. They're giving up only 284 yards per game. They have 49 sacks already. I think they have 31 takeaways. Nobody's talking about how brilliant Baltimore's defense is. So I think Baltimore's going to stomp Jacksonville. Jacksonville's got to take a deep breath here and hope they can get to the finish line and get Trevor Lawrence back to what he was. But losing Christian Kirk that's a huge setback to all the other components offensively.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a wild weekend starting off with 3 games tomorrow and then a full slate on Sunday, and then the Eagles and the Seahawks in the Monday nighter. Hacksaw, as I mentioned, it was early in the morning, and I was jumping on LeeHacksawHamilton.com to get all of your takes on the Chargers fiasco. I imagine that'll be, that's up right now, and I imagine podcasts, some internet content as well coming at LeeHacksawHamilton.com on that and everything else in this big weekend.
Well, definitely. And if you like sports, and I cover it all, I write about it. I wrote till 2 o'clock in the morning. Here's how stupid I am. I wrote my column. I posted it by 3 a.m. because it was a really late and long game, and I had a lot of stuff to write. Anyhow, I had to get up early this morning to go do my therapy on my neck and my shoulder. And I'm sitting there packed in ice. I look like a quarterback for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And I'm packed in ice, and I'm sitting there on my cell phone. And I said, I'm going to send Tom Telesco just a short note because he and I have had a long friendship relationship and a lot of respect. So I hit it, and I sent the email to him, told him to hang in there with it. You got to go through the dark, what's that phrase? The darkest night comes before the dawn or something like that. So I hit it, and I sent it to him. And within 20 seconds, I got all these alerts on my cell phone that he had been fired and the coach had been fired. So I felt bad for him, but obviously Scoreboard does not lie. Enormous problems there. A lot of problems around the National Football League with other franchises. And we'll be talking more about these deals. You like sports? Check my website. You can subscribe. It's absolutely free. Go to my podcast. That's there. And check my one man's opinion column, because I sat there for a long time trying to figure out how I was going to tell the story and say the story. And I'm getting bombastic amounts of response from people that did not like my column on the Chargers and the ownership of the Chargers.
I thought you nailed it, pal. Thanks for doing this, and enjoy what should be an awesome weekend in the National Football League. And hey, if you have some time, turn on the tube tomorrow. Big one here in Winnipeg, battling for the top of the Central Division with the Colorado Avalanche.
All right, have a great sports weekend, and plenty of pepperoni and sausage when you place my order with Boston Pizza. And I want a cold one to go with a frosted glass. I'll be home all day so they can deliver it.
Good stuff, pal. Thanks so much. There it is, the one and only Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And as I say, you should always be checking the website. But if you're interested in the aftermath now of the firings in LA with the Chargers, no one better than the Hacksaw ready to make it happen. All right, Marbles is open right now. We'll close that up in just a minute. Let's get Michael Remis back in here. And Remo, I'm figuring before we get to the Coolbet lines, we do have a little bit from this morning with Adam Lowry and Josh Morrissey going into a big one tomorrow night that I think Jet fans are really excited for.
Yeah, a lot of talk with the guys about the road trip that just happened, but also how they've overcame adversity this year with Rick Bowness leaving. They got through that with Arneal behind the bench, and they battled through missing Gabe Velarde, and now another stretch here without their top goal scorer and Kyle Carney. Looked pretty good here against the LA Kings, but that's just one game. You got a whole stretch of games, including a very tough one tomorrow when the Colorado Avalanche come to town.
Excellent. Okay, we'll tee up those clips. I mean,
Sure.
I just before we do that, I'll give a big shout out to our friends at Little Brown Jug. Great deals on generic lager, my personal fave right now. You will probably find me with a couple in my hand at some point tomorrow for the Jets Avalanche game, because of course Little Brown Jug now available at the arena. Craft Beer Corner, Section 310 upstairs, Craft Beer Corner, Section 126 downstairs where the old Moxies used to be. Just great having some more beer options, especially Winnipeg's finest local beer. And right now, when you pop into your local beer store, generic is on sale. 8-pack of the big cans for $19.99. And you can also pick those up for $2.99 a can. And hey, if you are popping by the tap room, check out their amazing merchandise. Might be a great Christmas gift. They've also got a great deal where you can mix and match 12 cans of your favorite Little Brown Jug beers. And with that purchase, you get a free $15 gift card to enjoy a couple pints down at the tap room. A great deal right now. You know where to find them. William Avenue, downtown, and as well online at littlebrownjug.ca. And with the holidays coming up, lots of people planning big events with family and friends. Why don't you take that dinner to the next level and include a DQ ice cream cake, festively done up for the holiday season. Nobody does it like Nick and Nikki DQ. If you want, hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba to get a personalized holiday cake, or a cake for any occasion, of course. Nothing better than those DQ ice cream cakes. And even better, you can pop by DQ Polo Park or DQ Northgate to pick it up and maybe grab a quick stack burger or blizzard while you are at it. Again, Nick and Nikki DQ, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park. And don't forget, we've got the Pita Pit out in Niverville now. Check that out. Healthy, fresh, delicious, fast. And they also do great catering. If you want Pita Pit catering, hit Nick and Nikki up at Pita Pit Niverville on Instagram or X. And hey, by the way, we had some great feedback yesterday on our interview with Vlastik Cherny as part of our It's Take a Community to Play segment with Sport Manitoba, brought to you by Manitoba Liquor and Lotteries. And we'll get back at it over the next couple weeks in the holidays. But one of the things that, Sport Manitoba is promoting and does 12 months a year is Safe Sport. And you can call the Safe Sport line for confidential help at 1-833-656-SAFE. If you're experiencing or witnessing any misconduct or maltreatment in sport, including bullying, harassment, hazing, or abuse, someone will get back to you in 24 hours. Everyone deserves a safe and positive sport experience. Call the Safe Sport line for confidential help if you need it. All right, Remo, let's hear what we got from the Jets. And why don't we start off with Adam Lowry on the road trip just passed.
Yeah, here's just exactly it. Adam Lowry, they asked him about the road trip, which finished up with the big win against the LA Kings. Here's Adam Lowry.
I think looking back on the road trip, going into that game in LA, it was a tough loss. We were disappointed with the result in San Jose, and to get down 2 goals early and respond the way we did, and just how Mark's line played, and it was Gabe and Nikolai. They really took the game over, and it's a huge win. I think generating any chances against LA's 1-3-1, especially when you're down, it's tough, and to find a way to come back and win, and on tired legs, 3 games in 4 nights, it would have been easy to fold up the tent. And I think that's a sign of a good team. Is there was no quit. We were able to kind of take over the game and started to dictate the pace. And going into that road trip, we kind of talked about where we want to go, and in order to get there, you have to beat some elite teams, and being able to beat the Kings and being able to beat the Avs, certainly is a step in the right direction. But there's no easy game in this league, and we have another chance at the Avs, and kind of them getting some guys back in the lineup that they didn't have when we played them in Denver. It makes it that much tougher. They're an elite team. They've got an elite back end. They've got some of the best players in the world. So we're looking forward to another challenge.
All right, so there is the captain of the Winnipeg Jets, Adam Lowry, teeing it up for that big one tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at Canada Life Center. And let's hear from Josh Morrissey. It's been a minute since we've heard from JMO. He has been phenomenal this season, building off his breakout year last season. And Morrissey talked about the overall season and overcoming the adversity with the Bones departure, the injury to Gabriel Velarde, and now an extended absence of top goal scorer Kyle Connor. Here is Josh Morrissey.
It starts with being on the same page throughout the organization, coaching staff, trainers, players. I think we've got a ton of leaders in our locker room and good core. Everyone's been pushing the ball in the same direction, so to speak. And I think obviously you can't replace players like KC, but guys can step up and not try and fill his shoes, but just be the best version of themselves and bring their best game to the table, and collectively as a group kind of pick up some of those minutes and obviously the scoring touch. So I think it's just been we say it a lot, lots of teams say it, we're a tight group in here, and I think we're on the same page, and sort of our vision of what we're trying to do day to day and what we're trying to become as a group I think is really clear.
Are you willing to share what that is? Because Adam also said something that you guys talked about, where you want to go. Are those things that you're willing to make public?
Well, I think it's more of an identity and just kind of the type of locker room we want to have here as players. I think a way we look on the ice, you always hear people talk about the teams that are kind of perennially at the top. There's a certain style of game, there's a certain compete and commitment to the details in their style of play, and commitment to defending hard. We've got a ton of skill in our room, and we let that skill come out in transition and off of good defensive play, and we feel that's a way that you can win any night in the league. So that's kind of the way we've been trying to look on the ice, commitment to detail off the ice, and it's something that takes a lot of work, takes a lot of energy and commitment, and certainly we're not even at Christmas yet, so there's a long way to go, but we're trying to look at it from we want to make those the hallmarks of our team every day this season and into the future of the kind of culture we're trying to build here, and I think every team's striving for that, but that's what our goal is.
All right, there is Josh Morrissey, and man, he's been great so far this season, and he'll need to be great tomorrow night along with the rest of his teammates as big challenge with the Avalanche, who remember what the Jets did to them what was it, 8 days ago. The rematch should be great tomorrow night, 6 p.m. at Canada Life Center. All right, last call for marbles. We can wrap that up right now. And Remis, if you want to kind of close it up and get things going, and we'll look forward to a marble race in just a minute. But before we do that, let's get over to the Coolbet lines for tonight. What do we have? 6 games in the NHL tonight. The Rangers are a massive minus 323 favorite at home against the Ducks. Carolina Hurricanes are finally home off that road trip. They're hosting the Nashville Predators. Carolina's a minus 166 favorite. Probably the game of the night's on Long Island. Boston at the Islanders. I think I'm going to make this one my daily pick for Coolbet on the play of the day. We've hit 3 in a row now after losing on Monday, and got a pretty nice one. No stress yesterday with the Raiders minus 3. But the Bruins are minus 115. I like them to get back in the win column after that OT loss to the Devils earlier this week. Islanders, if you like them, a slight home dog, minus 103. I think we'd all love to see the Ottawa Senators get back in the win column tonight against the Dallas Stars. Ottawa's a plus 165 dog. Dallas is minus 197. The Sharks and Coyotes go at it at Le Moulet, as Conor McGahey mentioned. Arizona minus 199. Sharks plus 167. And the Buffalo Sabres are in Vegas to take on the Golden Knights. Buffalo plus 162. Vegas 193. But let's get to the NFL because, man, this weekend is awesome. 3 games tomorrow, all very important. Vikings are 3-point underdogs against the Bengals in the noon game. The Colts are a 1.5-point favorite against the Steelers in a battle of 7 and 6 playoff teams right now in the AFC at 3:30. 7:15, Ford Field, Detroit. The Lions look to get back in the win column. They're 4.5-point favorites against the Denver Broncos. The big games on Sunday include, well, Miami's at home trying to get over what happened on Monday. They're 9.5-point favorites against the Jets. Chiefs are 8-point favorites in New England against the Patriots. The Niners, 12.5-point favorites in Arizona against the Cardinals. And the big one that Hacksaw talked about, the Bills and Cowboys going at it in Orchard Park. 2-point favorites are the Bills. I'm kind of with Hacksaw. I like the Cowboys in this one. Dallas plus 110. Sunday nighter, a great one. Baltimore, they're 3.5-point favorites against the Jags. And the Monday nighter right now on the books, 3-point favorites are the Eagles in Seattle against the Seahawks. We made all our picks for the week in the lock shop today. Check that out on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel. But I will tell you, we've got a few partner parlays put together. We did one for Saturday. Now, full disclosure, the Lions screwed us so badly last week. They are suspended. They're suspended from being on our partner parlay, but they're playing in one of the 3 games on tomorrow. So we did have to put that game on it, but we went with the Broncos, plus 4.5. Vikings, Bengals, over 40.5, and Indianapolis to win. If you like that one, ride with us at plus 625. There is the option with the staggered games. If we get the over in the Viking game and Indianapolis to win, you could hedge out and bet the Lions on the other side and guarantee yourself some sort of a win. And for Sunday, Joe Flacco back with the Browns. We've got the Browns at minus 2.5. Tease that down 0.5 point. So the Browns to win by 3 or more against the, Chicago Bears. The New York Jets in Miami. We're taking the Jets and the points, plus 9.5. A big, big spread. Miami in a short week coming off that stunning meltdown on Monday night. And the New Orleans Saints, minus 5.5-point favorites against upstart Tommy DeVito. That one's also plus 625. And we did have one from the chat. We've had a few guys that have been nailing a few. So we've got a double shot prop today. Alex Killorn over 1.5 shots. Claude Giroux over 2.5 shots. That one is plus 200. It's all there at Coolbet. Use the promo code WST if you haven't played there before for a 100% bonus. Up to $200 on your first deposit. All right, Remis, is it marbles time?
Yes, it is marbles time. I got it. I have the list of names here. We have 228 entries. So I have a track selected. I've tested it. Looks good. I've seen a number of people putting it in lately, but Hustler announced it was closed, so you may not see your name in there. We usually open at 2:45 p.m., so you got to get in right away. So there we go. And I'll just say also, we are giving away a pair of tickets to Sunday's Manitoba Moose game on our website. You have until, I guess, later tonight to enter. winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. winnipegsportstalk.com. You can click the contest at the top there.
Only enter if you want to and can go to the game.
Yeah, because, like, you know how many times people have won? We're like, oh, I can't actually go. Or, oh, I didn't think I would win. I just entered for fun. Because
don't enter that.
I don't actually like going. I just like winning. We get that a lot. So we want people to actually use these tickets. I got to be honest. Like, it's sometimes frustrating. I send out the emails and they don't accept them or what. So don't do that.
Bottom line is we want these tickets to be used. So anyways, winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. There's a link away. And then, you know what? And after the marbles, stick around. The marble race, we'll finish it off by announcing our second Beat the Box Office winner for AEW. Congratulations to Mary Jane, who won in the Wheel of Winners yesterday. And don't forget, AEW tickets on sale now. You don't no longer have to use the pre-sale code. On sale right now. Ticketmaster, April 10th. If you've got any wrestling fans in the family, definitely a great Christmas present or stocking stuffer to go out and see all the Winnipeg boys, including the Golden Jets, Winnipeg natives Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho, along with our old buddy Don Callis. All right. Tristan Rivers music time to get things ready for marbles. Remo, let's fire it up and get her going.
Oh, I guess I got to pick a song. I don't really have one ready. I think we did the regular one last time.
We did the original last week.
We did the original. All right. I got a bunch here. I'm kind of in the mood for this one.
It's Friday. Another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself. Maybe an ice cream truck or a bottle of beer. Following the whole day in, so lax you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give blind luck a try. It's time to do a marble race. No skill separating best to worst. Marble race. Just tie the marbles with the punctuation first. Marble race. Truck beer, blue jeans, girl, go back from town. Truck beer. Marble race. To your mark before it's too late. Set, go. Truck.
Twang it up. The one and only Tristan Rivers music. Hey, Bailey, the intern's back in. What's up, Bay? Great way to start the weekend marbles after meeting Adam Lowry. You got to meet Adam Lowry today? Nice. Tell us about it in the chat. All right, Remo, how many marbles we got today?
238.
Whoa, big race today. All right, and now is this a new course that you have been trying out? Another new one for the peeps?
I just tested one. I forget the name. I wrote it down because I always forget the name after. Oh, what's the date today? Marbles, December 15. Let me remember the name. It is. Hold on, I'll bring it up. Cool Polar Summer.
Cool Polar Summer. All right. Well, we're here for it.
Well, it's not summer, and I don't know if it's polar.
It feels a little summery for the middle of December right now. I was outside earlier. It is absolutely gorgeous. These last couple of days have been great. Good time to get outside and make the most of it before things get real cold. Well, hopefully not, but I mean, I think we all need to be prepared for it. Dan Milburn, Remo, you going to the card show? Where's the card show, Dan? Fill us out in the chat. Give us the details. Got a busy day tomorrow, but I always like ripping by a card show. That'll be fun. Yes, Frosty, cool polar summer. That is exactly what we've got going on. We'll get it up and make this thing happen. I'm just going to go down here. Well, you know what? While Remis does this, don't forget Moose giveaway on the website right now. And we do have the name of the AEW winner. Congratulations. Well, you know what? Well, we're ready to go. But Stephen Sherwood, we'll see you at AEW. Congratulations. Mary Jane, our first Beat the Box Office winner. Thanks to everyone that entered on the website. Congratulations to Stephen Sherwood, maybe a podcast listener or another alias in the chat. But Stephen, you got a couple tickets for AEW. We don't have them yet, but we've got your information. And when we have them, we will be sending them out to you. All right, it's been a huge week. Jets are rolling. Big game tomorrow night. NFL on the weekend. I cannot wait. But before we do anything, it's time to drop the marbles. Good luck to everyone. New track, Cool Polar Summer. Winner receives a WST hoodie courtesy of our great friends over at Shipham and Associates. All right, Remo, let's drop them. Looks like a mini golf course or something at the start. I like the green font. And here we go, everybody. A long drop on the Cool Polar Summer going into a jump right off the bat. Oh, man, this looks awesome. Here we go. You got 238 marbles flying into this funnel. And wow, a number of marbles really took that very, very efficiently. Who's in first now? Julien Labossiere looking pretty good. I see Daryl in the mix. Now, who squeezed through? Daryl M for the W. One Bird is in the mix. iHeart Gaming we saw as well. This is a fast track today, a real fast track. I see B. Henderson in the mix. Jeff Bowes, Kitty Pup. One Bird, Fun Bird, and wow, we've got a few people that are getting thrown over the top rope. One Bird's right there. All caps Kyle's right in the mix. This is a wild track right now. The Cool Polar Summer. I'm not sure what's very polar. Oh, Bye-Bye Blake to Bye-Bye Blake. Over the top rope. Ron P. Ron with an H is in that first bit. Now there's a bit of a, that thimble or whatever is causing people some issues.
Sorry, I'm trying to maneuver this camera.
I know this is a wild, this is a wild one, dude. You're doing some very good camera work and production though on a tough one. All right, we're getting now to I don't know what we would call this. Oh, somebody just popped out. Okay, Cam Thang, Ron Bowes, Ron P, and Kitty Pup are sort of this first group right now. Jeff Bowes looking good. Wild Thang himself, but it looks like it's Ron P, ROHNP. Cam Thang, Leanne M, Trevor Red Rooster in the mix as well. So Ron and Cam making things happen right now. Still a little ways to go before you get to the end. Which way will these competitors go? Cam to the big wheel. Ron P to the smaller globe. All caps Kyle's in the mix. Who is going to come out first? It looks like Kim Sawchuk is going to be first. Is Kim going to take it? Yes, here she is. Kim, nice work. A big, big win for Kim today in today's marble race. We'll get the rest of the top 10 and let you know how it all finishes up. But yeah, what the heck? There we go. Kim Sawchuk, Terror Rooster, Michael Pruden, Russ Lowen. Russ with a nice top 4 finish. No I in Timu was 5th. Ron P had a nice run, was like right in the mix pretty much the entire race. Drew Music was 7th. Fred Schneider, who was giving me grief about my guy Mahomes earlier today. Oh, look at Gregory. The GFL, 9th. And all caps Kyle with a top 10 performance. Very, very nicely done. Kim Sawchuk, though, congratulations. Kim, fire us an email at winnipegsportstalk.com, or sorry, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. And I'll hit you up, and maybe some point next week you can pop by and pick up your hoodie. Let us know what size you are as well when you send us the email, if you don't mind. All right, here's the list. I know we've got some WSTers that are doing side bets, so we can kind of let this one run. One Bird Funbird, pretty nicely done. Michael Sofer. What's up, Michael? Top 20. Leanne M in the top 20. MC Stormy right on the number on 20. As we continue down, Trevor Red Ranger, not to be confused with Terror Ranger, was there in the, 31st. Waiters, nicely done, 37th. There's Dark Moon. Isha Boy Bruce and Phyllis back-to-back. Yin Vivian. Yin, nicely done. 60th, not too bad.
Kim's in chat. She says, OMG with exclamation, and then adds, I am weeping with joy.
Oh, it's such a big moment for the regulars that have been in so many marble races to finally win one. Ken, what a great way to come finish up the end of 2023 with a big win in the marble race. Cruiser just getting in the top 100. And again, we can just keep going on. There's our boy T-Kona Pauly. T-Kona, what's going on? Tristan Rivers Music, we see. Winnipeg Walter. Mark Amph. Mark, 128th, 126 spots lower than his second place finish last week. Todd Fertani's 145th, but he doesn't care. His Raiders embarrassed the Chargers and ended the Brandon Staley era last night. Oh, Chris Streveler for Coat. Look at that. Dino Apostolopoulos. Dan Milburn. There's Doug Phil. 22 Canuck. Amanda. Geez, tough one, Amanda. We'll be better next week. Bravo Bry. 192. Kenny's Water Bottle. And Gary Labossiere, the last one across the finish line. Cam Thang was looking good, but ended up getting bounced. Oh, there's Jay Sheps, Retro Winnipeg TV. He was out as well. Mary Jane got tossed. Mary Jane was the big winner yesterday, though, with the AEW tickets. A wonderful end to a big, big week. Reem, what's amazing how big the shows have been this week. But the Jets are bringing them out. People are fired up, and hopefully, as excited everyone was to come join us on Winnipeg Sports Talk, we'll see a great crowd tomorrow night at the rink for what should be a hell of a hockey game to start this 4-game homestand.
Yeah, I'm pumped up. The Montreal game is always a big one, but we're going to that's Monday, and we're a number of national games as well, but we are going to be starting tomorrow night, 6 p.m. start, Colorado Avalanche, the big rematch after the Jets took them down in Denver before, and next week the homestand continues Monday, Wednesday, Montreal, as I said, Detroit, and then in another original 6-game Boston. Big original 6 week. Next week. That's a nice schedule. I'm expecting big crowds as it is, I think, the holidays, late December, a lot of people back in the city. Maybe people are off work, ready to have a good time. And should be, again, hopefully some more wins because a lot of excitement. We felt it here, certainly, after that win against LA. And, there's a lot of people in here earlier in the week after the Anaheim win as well.
Yeah, you know it, gang. And, of course, 6:30 starts on Monday and Wednesday for the Habs and the Detroit games, as those are on Sportsnet, as well as actually the game on Saturday night, 6 o'clock start. But, yeah, listen, as I said before, if you've been holding out, getting down to the arena and dropping a little quan on some tickets, team's playing great right now, some big matchups. I mean, really hoping we'll see some improved crowds right now because the team's worth it, and they're playing their butts off right now. Can't wait for the game tomorrow. Again, full week of shows next week from Monday right through until Friday. And then we'll be off for, 4 days for Christmas, and then back on the 27th when the Jets are in Chicago before coming back for that back-to-back on the weekend of New Year's Eve. 1 o'clock here in Winnipeg on Saturday, 1 o'clock in Minnesota on New Year's Eve, followed by the Vikings and the Packers. There's going to be a lot of Winnipeggers down for that doubleheader, Reem.
Oh yeah, that's a big one, Huss. So it's that time of year. We got NFL on Saturdays now. The 3 games tomorrow.
Love it.
Some big games up for the Jets as we approach. There's a Christmas break, small one, isn't there? So exciting times as we've got ourselves a battle here for the top of the Central Division. Colorado first, 38 points. Jets second, 36 points. But they do have a game in hand, so this is again good one. Both tied, plus 17 goal differential. Craziness here.
Hey, Jets right there with these teams, these top teams. I mean, if you're waiting for the bottom to fall out, it certainly hasn't happened yet. They're holding their own, and we'll see what happens tomorrow as we talked with Conor McGahey earlier. Check it out if you missed it. Our first guest of the day. The Avalanche looking forward to this one to try to get the Jets back for what Winnipeg did to them in Denver a week ago, or 8 days ago, last Thursday. That is going to do it for us. We'll get the pod up for everyone to listen to. Folks, have a great weekend. Thanks for coming out in the numbers you did all week long. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give a thumbs up as well on the show if you haven't done that at all. It really does help us spread the channel. Maybe we'll see you at the rink tomorrow night. Hopefully, I'll be up in the Upper Bowl, the WST spot in that hangar bar. I'll be hanging around there. Pop by and say hi if you're at the game in the upper deck. And otherwise, we'll break it all down and get ready for the Jets and Habs on Monday, 1 o'clock live on YouTube right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a good one, everybody.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.